Hello, everyone, and welcome to the enchanting realm of anime dreams. Today's fanfiction exploration revolves around the intriguing concept of what if female Naruto possessed impeccable chakra control? Disclaimer: the content on this channel is for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. Without further ado, let's commence. White clouds covered the dark sky and the rain was pouring heavily. The soil was building a muddy trail through the dark forest, but 6-year-old Naruto kept on running, not knowing where her feet would take her. She was terrified, not when the wind began howling or because she was lost in the depths of the dark forest. She was terrified because there were 3 men not far behind, hot on her trail. They were ninjas. She could feel their chakra bursting, adrenaline pumping through their veins for the thrill of pursuit. Something really bad was going to happen to her if they catch her, she knew that clearly. And it was too late to ask for Gigi's help because she was already at the outskirts of the village. If she turned back, they would catch her again. And she didn't know if she could outrun them the second time. Despite the noise of the heavy rain and the cry of the wind, she could hear the frantic beat of her heart. Where was Hound right now? Or Weasel? They were supposed to be back from their mission today. Most times when the villagers tried to hurt her, they would appear and save her. Why not now when the people behind her weren't civilians but experienced ninjas? She didn't know if the evading skills Hound and Weasel taught her would help right now. After all, she was only 6 and the men pursuing her were adults. And even if she was good at evading, she was still far too weak compared to them. The tears in her eyes were beginning to cloud her vision and the heavy rain was obscuring her sense of sight even more. She was scared. Really scared. They weren't only going to kill her. One of them said he would have his way on her before he would slash her throat. She had no idea what the former meant, but the slashing of her throat was really something to be terrified of. One of them had punched her already before she outsmarted them. This time, she knew they would beat her to death. Maybe, evading the angry villagers was just prolonging the harsh truth. Maybe she was meant to die. That's what all they say when they tried to beat her. Maybe tonight, Hound and Weasel weren't meant to save her. She swallowed a sob as she stumbled over a rocky path. She kept the crying at bay as she got back to her feet. She was scared, exhausted, and she didn't know where to go. It seemed that rescue was far coming. She could sense the men were nearing and she could tell that any time soon, they would catch her. But she kept on running, swerving through the forest and suppressing her own chakra as far as she could. She didn't know if she was doing what Hound taught her correctly, yet she tried anyway. But when she thought she would finally come to a little rest, she sobbed in despair as she went on a screeching halt. Right in front of her was a wide rocky hill. It would be impossible for her to climb on it. Sobbing and breathing heavily, she looked for another way. There was no clear pathway around, only thick bushes. On her desperate attempt to safety, she ducked and crawled into the shrubberies on her left, not minding some thorns of the plant scratching her skin and tearing her clothes. She crawled and crawled, making way and stopping when she saw a small hole on the side of the rocky hill. She brushed the strands of blonde hair covering her face, before she decided to poke her way through the hole. It was small but her little body could fit through it. She carefully crawled and squirmed inside. That was when she noticed it wasn't just a hole. Although tight, the hole was an uneven rock-patched pathway. It was dark but she kept on squirming through it. Those men wouldn't fit here, she was sure of it. So, she kept on crawling until she couldn't sense the men anymore. She just hoped they lost her track. They were ninjas, they had ways to find her. She had no idea how long she slinked or how far she went, but she stifled a gasp when she saw a dim light not far ahead. That gave her a new sense of determination. She set her exhaustion aside and made way until she reached the end of the hole. And there, in front of her was a tunnel-like open space. It wasn't wide but it wasn't narrow either. There were few dim lights around it, a tunnel-like hallway at the other side of the space and a door on the right side of it. Curiosity eating her at the discovery, she crawled out of the hole and walked right to the closed door. She lifted her tired right arm and reached for the knob. She carefully veered it open and slowly pushed the door. Even before she could see what was inside, she was bombarded with different beeping sounds. When she poked her head inside, exhaustion and fear forgotten, her eyes went wide at the sight of different machines around the room. She headed in silently, looking around and noticing the different lights on the machines. There, at the center of the room, was a person. A man was lying on a table, wearing a white hospital dress. Different tubes were attached to his body. A transparent rubber mask was latched onto his face, covering his nose and mouth. Naruto blinked once. Twice. Even at a distance, the man looked familiar. She found herself walking towards the table. She scrunched her nose when she reached the side of the bed, noticing his hair. She automatically reached hers. They were the same color. But her hair was longer than his, hers was reaching her back and his was short and unruly. She looked at his face. It was pale and the man seemed sleeping. If he was a ninja, he would have woken up at her presence. She knew he wasn't dead because she could see the slow rise and fall of his chest. She frowned. If the man was sick, should he be at the hospital and not here? There was nobody else around, so why was he alone here and not being taken care of? Mister? She tried to call out but the man didn't budge. She let out a sigh and looked around again. There was a chair on the corner of the room. She could sit there and rest. Exhaustion was coming back and she wanted to lie down and sleep. She went for the chair and pulled it towards the bedside, without making a noise. She slumped on it and rested her folded arms on the free space of the bed. She then propped her head over her arms, facing the sleeping man. I wonder why you're alone here. I don't sense anyone around, she mumbled quietly. What is this place, anyway? There was no response. How long have you been sleeping? She kept mumbling as her eyes began to droop. Do you mind if I rest here? I'm just so tired. No response. Well. Good night. She muttered drowsily, as she closed her eyes and let her body succumb to exhaustion. Naruto gasped when she found herself standing on an unknown place. It was a huge space, with little less light, unlike the room she was in just a while ago. Was she dreaming? In front of her was a huge cage with tall bars and a seal on the middle of it. She couldn't see anything behind the tall bars. It was too dark there. She looked around. There was water all over the place. Wait, was she inside a sewer? What the? So the human had finally come here? Said a throaty huge voice, the sound echoed all over the place. She let out a small scream, looking back at the cage. That was where the voice came from, but it was still dark. Suddenly, there was an enormous orange creature standing behind the bars, looking at her. There were tails swishing behind it. Fear crept through her, her body began shaking. She couldn't move and her heart was beating fast as she stood stricken. There was a malevolent air flowing around the space and she was choking on her own saliva in fear. Funny, she evaded the men pursuing her, only to face death by the hand of this creature. It didn't say anything else. It just kept staring down at her, as if observing her. She had no idea how long they stood there facing each other. Her body shook uncontrollably, but she couldn't find the strength to move away and escape this place. She swallowed the lump in her throat as she tried to find her own voice. Hey, are you going to kill me? She finally asked. The creature didn't answer. It just kept staring down at her. But the malicious atmosphere was beginning to ebb away. It made her breathing slowly return back to normal and the shaking of her body slow down. After a long moment, it gracefully flopped its huge body on the floor, its face resting on its front legs, and eyes never leaving hers. But its tails were still swishing. It wasn't harming her yet, so she let her shoulders sag in relief. Only a little, though. She tried to say, waiting for its answer. Can a huge creature snort? Because that was what it did. I can, it replied. No. I asked you if you are going to, she corrected innocently. Did it understand her question? Of course, it could kill her. It was big and she was tiny. What was the creature, anyway? Would you like me to? What? No. Are you crazy? Then, why are you asking? She was beginning to get frustrated. Because I was suddenly here. Just a while ago, I escaped the ninjas who were going to hurt me. How should I know you won't? And I'm really scared right now, Dada-bio. That's why I'm asking. And how could you talk, anyway? And what are you? She babbled in succession. For the second time, the creature snorted. For being scared, you sure are loud and talkative, was its rhetoric reply. Fear completely forgotten, she stomped her feet. You're toying with me, aren't you? Hound always does that, T-bio. She heaved a huge sigh of relief though, because the malicious air was now completely gone. Remembering her Anbu friend, she gasped. She hoped he was back and already looking for her. She didn't know this place or how to get out of it. No, I'm not going to kill you, came the response of the creature. She looked at it intently, it was staring back. Okay. She reluctantly said. Thank you. Its eyes widened a bit, as though surprised with what she said. Why are you thanking me? I told you I am not going to kill you, but I also said I can. I am powerful and you're only human. Yeah, but you have no idea what relief to me your answer is, she said. I mean, look at you. You're this big creature that can harm me easily, but you're not doing it. Instead, the ones you called humans are the ones who keep on hurting me. I don't even know why. There was a sudden flare of hateful air as the creature's eyes squinted on her. But it vanished instantly. That's why, thank you, she continued. Hey, I still don't know how you can talk. And what's your name, anyway? I keep calling you creature in my mind. And why are you inside that cage? Aren't you lonely? For the longest time, it just stared at her without any expression. But in the end, it spoke. Come here, child. Why? She asked suspiciously. I have something to give you. Now that roused her curiosity. She carefully sauntered towards the cage, only to find out one of its hands behind the bars, closed fist. Fist bump with me, it said. Naruto didn't move and stared at the creature instead. She looked for signs of lies and aggression, but she found none. So, she raised her fisted hand. But before their fists touched, the orange creature spoke again. My name is Kurama, Naruto. Sarutobi Hiruzen rubbed his forehead tiredly, anxiety and concern eating his whole being. And the weather seemed mocking him. Heavy rain covered Konoha, making the only task he ordered the team of Anbu in front of him, staggeringly fail, to search for the missing little girl, Uzumaki Naruto. 5 hours ago, the guard turning to his shift, reported that the girl was not in her apartment and the place was raided. And just now, 2 past midnight, the search party returned. All of them were drenched and without Naruto. We searched the forest as thoroughly as we could, but her scent was washed away by the rain, Hound explained. And the heavy downpour was obstructing us. I had to call off the search for now. He could tell that Hound was feeling the same way he felt. Hound was also close to the little girl. And this Anbu captain took his job of guarding Naruto seriously. Uzumaki Naruto was special to him. Kakashi might have or not realized it, but the girl had become the little light of his darkened life. It was unfortunate that this happened when he just came back from a mission. The Hokage drew a deep breath. What about the 3 Chunin you intercepted? A female operative with long violet hair beside Hound answered. They were brought to T&I. Ibiki-san confirmed that they were the culprit, Hokage-sama. They pursued the child on the east side of the forest but lost trail 5 kilometers of Area 8. In addition. She paused, as if trying to find the proper words. Inoiki-san mentioned one of the culprits, Chunin Kawashita Ino, was planning to do something licentious to the child. Hiruzen stiffened at the last words. Rage bubbled inside him. The verbal report was done in a standard procedure, but the true meaning was clear. That man planned to rape an innocent child. But what he was feeling seemed little compared to Hound's. The spike of his killing intent was veiling the office. More so, Hound snarled. Hound, calm yourself, he ordered. The man was apprehended before he could act on it. Our problem right now is finding Naruto. Hound spoke. I'm going to continue the search, Hokage-sama. I marked the last place I went, so I'll start from there. I might find some sign of her. Sarutobi was torn between ordering the young man to rest for a while and letting him do the search. Finding Naruto was paramount, and if something happened to the girl, then the search team and his guards tensed when a sudden wave of energy burst through the air. It was massive. But just as fast as it surged, it vanished instantly and without trace. But he couldn't mistake that energy for anything. That was the Kyuubi's. Naruto. Right before he could bark an order, another Anbu appeared on his left. Hokage-sama, head medic Masaki just now reported there was spike detected on subject Yogen's brain electrical activity. The medical team assigned is heading to the pit as we speak. Hiruzen stood abruptly and started barking orders. The 5 of you and my guards, come with me. He turned to the newly arrived operative. Take Cat and Sparrow with you. Make sure the medic team isn't and won't be compromised. Eliminate all suspicious entity. Even before his last breath, Namikaze Minato had already accepted his fate, to spend the rest of eternity inside the Shinigami's stomach. But after a long time being stuck in this godforsaken place, there were moments he regretted his decision. Don't get him wrong, he would offer his soul again if it meant saving his people and village from total destruction. But for the life of his, in this eternal prison, he had regretted sacrificing even his only daughter's life. His newly born princess. He had no idea how old Naruto was now. Oftentimes, he hoped the villagers were treating her well. He could only hope that she would forgive him for sealing the Kyuubi inside her, giving her a huge responsibility when she wasn't even an hour old. The one thing he regretted the most, though, was that he didn't get the chance to say I love you to her. In the end, the only thing he had told Naruto was to listen to her mother. He thought of his wife, Kushina. A selfish part of him most times wished she was with him in this place, to spend the rest of their eternity together. He laughed dryly, remembering their last moments together, saying goodbye to their daughter. Even in her last breath, she took over with her motor mouth. He heaved a deep sigh. There was no passing of time in this place. It was just a space, either a figment of his imagination or a literal one, a golden one at that. He had spent his time thinking of everything over and over, the what-ifs, and well, wishing he could see his family even just once. Even just the glimpse of them. Moping again, mortal? He turned his head to his right. Not far from him, was the yin half of Kyuubi he sealed into himself, lazily flopped on what he could call flooring of the vast space. He heaved another sigh. This time it wasn't of regret but of exasperation. In his eternal imprisonment inside the Shinigami's stomach, this situation was also one of his regrets, spending his eternity with the Kyuubi no Kitsune. The first time he had woken up in this place was also the time he met the demon fox. It was outraged and its pure hatred was leaking all over the place, most of it was directed towards him. Odd, though. The Kyuubi hadn't harmed him. He thought it was because of the Shiki Fujin seal he used. And then again, what could the mighty fox do? They were both trapped inside the Shinigami's stomach. Both dead. The Kyuubi's incessant yammering, its thundering roars, were getting on his nerves every now and then. But it wasn't as if he had spent all his time with it. In fact, he had found a way to channel himself away from the fox and spend his time alone. And there were times when he somewhat enjoyed company, even if it was the Kyuubi's. I can do whatever I want in this place, don't you think? He retorted sagaciously. After all, what more could I do in here? The mighty fox sneered at him, with that knowing look in its eyes that irritated him to no end. It was as if the Kyuubi knew something he didn't. He had thought of the Kyuubi's actions during their time together. He could still feel its malevolent chakra, but he did notice that the beast had mellowed somehow. Occasionally, it would sputter threats and curses at him when angry. But that was it. They talked occasionally, as well. Although, he didn't know why, but sometimes, it was as if the demon fox would feel something he couldn't. And then it would sneer at him meaningfully. Ah, thinking about regrets again, the fox mocked. But then again, that's the only thing you can do. Tell me, lowly human. Was sealing me within you one of them? No, not at all, he admitted. I truly am sorry for what I did, but I had to choose. I chose to seal you in me and I chose to die. That's all there is to it. The QB's slitted eyes narrowed at him. I commend you for such feat, calling forth the Shinigami and dragging me with you. However, don't ever think I will forgive you for what you did. You don't have to, QB. As I have said, I had to choose. The beast only snorted in response. It was rare for them to have this kind of casual conversation, so Minato decided to take the opportunity. Say, QB. Do you know that masked man who controlled you? A bastard Uchiha, was the simple reply of the nine-tailed fox. It was Minato's turn to snort. It seemed that he wouldn't get a proper answer from the beast. Very apt, QB. Very apt of you. Hey. Minato stared at the fox for a moment before looking away. He recalled the events of the tragic night. Sure, the man didn't confirm or deny that he was Uchiha Madara, and Minato hadn't had the time find out. One thing was clear though, that Uchiha's declaration before he disappeared was far more disturbing. The fox in this whole world will bow to my will. It meant, he would come back to Konoha and his target was clear. His musings were cut off abruptly when a huge pulse of energy burst through the vast space they were in. Another pulse burst, but it felt familiar, pure and warm. He looked around to find out what happened, but nothing had changed. But the QB grinned at him, its sharp teeth showing. And then, it slowly stood tall, with his tail swished and swirled in somewhat akin to anticipation. It's time. A time for what? He probed. He then noticed for the first time, that his heart was beating fast. Without any warning, a wave of vivid emotions surged through the vast space and he took a sharp intake of breath when he felt them. What is happening? Before the QB could answer, he felt an unknown force pulling him out of the space. Not a moment later, he could feel himself wheezing for breath. He opened his eyes, panicking, only to notice that he wasn't inside the Shinigami's stomach anymore but in a. He blinked his eyes, trying to clear his vision. The surrounding was a lot dimmer than the golden space he came from. Was he in hell? Did the Shinigami spit out his soul to hell? He tried to calm his nerves so he could properly assess what his situation was. When his vision started to clear, he noticed a paved ceiling. A room? A tunnel? He could hear beeping noises around but couldn't tell what they were. He tried to move but his body felt heavy and numb. There was something on his face because he could faintly feel his hot breath. And his throat was dry and burning. Other than that, he couldn't feel anything. What is happening? He heard the softest gasp coming from his left, followed by a soft, sweet voice. Hey, mister. It took all of his strength just to turn his head towards the voice. And when his eyes met the owner of it, his breath hitched. There, sitting on a chair beside him was a little girl, with long blonde locks, familiar-shaped azure eyes looking at him with fear and concern. And those thin-lined whisker marks. It couldn't be. Naruto? Did he come back from the dead, or this was just a figment of his imagination? Did the Shinigami somewhat granted his desperate wish to see his child? Or was he just dreaming even in death? He faintly felt a squeeze on his left hand and there it was again. A pure and warm pulse. He felt alive. What was it? He didn't take his gaze off the child. She looked like a female version of him when he was a child. Except for the shape of her eyes. They were cunningly the same as Kushina's. Was he alive? Was this little girl his daughter? Are you okay? She asked. I think I woke you up. Enna. He wheezed but he forced himself to speak. Ar. You. Na. Ru. Too? The little girl sucked her breath and her eyes widened. How do you know my name? Naruto was jerked awake by something she couldn't describe. One moment, she was talking to the huge creature Kurama, and the next moment, a surge of energy shook her conscious. She opened her eyes and sucked her breath, blinking rapidly. She slowly lifted her head, only to find out that she was holding a big hand. Oh. She was in the creepy room with the sleeping man, then. Was meeting Kurama in that place just a dream? It seemed real. She felt a twitch from the man's fingers. Did she hold his hand while she was asleep? She sat up and looked at his face. That was when she noticed that the man was awake, wheezing his breath quietly, looking wearily at the ceiling. "Hey, mister," she called. The man slowly turned his head towards her. Their eyes met and his widened when he saw her. Did he just stop breathing? She noticed the color of his eyes. They were blue, just like hers. Why did he look so shocked and scared? Was she scaring him? The soft constant noise from the machines around began beeping louder and it alarmed her. That would be a bad sign, right? "Are you okay?" she asked. "I think I woke you up." "Nah." He spoke as he wheezed. "Are you? Nah, Ru, too?" She gasped. He knew her? "How do you know my name?" Tears suddenly formed in his eyes and the situation was starting to confuse her. She yelped in surprise when the hand she was holding gripped hers tightly. She tried to remove it from his grasp but it only tightened even more. He then moved frantically, struggling to sit up but he looked like he was in so much pain. Hey, wait, she tried to stop him as she stood up. "Calm down, mister." Nah. She had no idea if he was calling her name again. "Yes, my name is Naruto. Please, calm down, mister. You will hurt yourself." Gradually, he stopped moving but he didn't let go of her hands. "Am I? Dow," he still seemed having a hard time breathing. Maybe he was really sick. "Where is your doctor?" she asked curiously. "You are alone in here when I found this room, Tbo." He choked a sob and his shoulders began shaking. He was crying. She felt a pang of guilt. Was it because of what she said? Or was it because of her? I didn't mean to make you cry. I'm sorry." He cried harder. She heaved a heavy sigh. What was with today? Just earlier she was escaping her pursuers, and now this. With another sigh, she lifted her free hand and reached for his shoulder, gently patting it. There. Hound used to do that to her when she was crying. Although, it was her head or back he would pat. Or he would hug her. Right now, she couldn't reach this man's head and she wouldn't hug a total stranger. Not even in pity. There. She repeated her actions. Naruto couldn't tell if he was crying because of physical pain or something else. But the sound of his quiet sobs was heartbreaking and it was starting to affect her. She didn't know how long the time passed. She just patted him as she listened to his cries. Sometimes, his grip on her hand would tighten even more that it hurt. The 6-year-old girl stiffened when she sensed multiple chakra signatures coming towards the room. But her familiarity to most of them gave her a sense of relief. She turned her head to the door even before it opened. When it did, the old man burst in, only to stop abruptly when he saw her. Behind him were Hound and Weasel, and some more Anbu. "Gigi." The old man Hokage rushed to her side but his attention was already at the man. "Minato?" Behind her, she heard someone gasp. "S-sensei?" "He won't stop crying and he's breathing hard," she informed the old man. "I don't know what else to do." But the old man kept his attention towards the crying man. "You finally woke up?" "Yes, Gigi. Just a few minutes ago," she replied for the crying man. She doubted the stranger would answer. He couldn't even form a proper sentence. Even his words were fragmented because he was breathing hard. "When he saw me, he started wheezing. And then he cried." It was then the old man turned to her. "How did you end up here, Naruto?" he asked sternly. "I got lost, Tbo." She defended. It was not like she enjoyed being hunted. "They were chasing me. I ran and ran," she was interrupted by the old man's commanding voice. "Weasel, take her to the office." "No. Someone bellowed. Naruto realized it was the crying man who did it. His grip on her hand tightened so much that she cried in pain. Suddenly, there was bedlam. Someone grabbed her away from the bed. The sick stranger began trashing while he screamed his protests and her name. The old man forced him down on the bed, along with the doctors. Were they hurting the man? He was still weak. "Stop it, Gigi. You're hurting him." She shrieked and she couldn't help her tears. "Naruto." The man called out for her. "Gigi, no. Stop it." Her protests were in vain because Weasel had already taken her out of the room. She tried sliding herself out of his grasp but to no avail. He was stronger than her. She couldn't help feeling bad for the man and for herself. He was still calling out for her but she couldn't do something about it. The only thing she managed was to cry for him. Weasel stopped walking and gently twisted her body until he was holding her properly. Her hands automatically looped around his neck. "What are they doing to him?" she asked, fearing for the stranger. "Shh. It's going to be all right," the preteen consoled her. It seems that he had woken up from a long sleep and he is confused. "They are not hurting him, Naru-chan. You promise?" He wiped the tears off her cheeks. "Of course, Naru." "Who is that man, anyway? Do you know him?" Weasel sighed. "From a long time ago, yes. I didn't know he was Ali, in deep sleep until tonight." "Oh." She looked around and noticed they were heading towards the tunnel from earlier. And then she remembered her previous predicament. "Wait, put me down." "Why?" "I have to tell you what happened to me." "You, Hound and Gigi would ask about it later, anyway." She felt him stiffen before he gently put her on the floor. He then crouched in front of her, his mask hiding his face. "Okay, Naruto. What happened and how did you end up here?" "I was about to sleep when 3 men barged into my door. They were all drunk, I could smell it. I heard them trashing outside my room but even before I could hide, they went inside my room." Her lips quivered at the memory. The fact that it wasn't the first time the villagers tried to hurt her didn't make it less frightening. "There was no Anbu around to help me." Weasel sighed. Owl was supposed to be there but was held back with personal circumstances. "When he arrived to his post, you were already gone." She just nodded and continued her story. "I managed to get out of the room and the apartment because they were drunk. They were slower than usual. And I just ran. I thought they wouldn't follow me but they did. I heard one of them said he would have his way on me before he would slash my throat." Her lips quivered again and this time, she couldn't help her tears. "I was so scared, Tachi-ni." He reached for her and rubbed her back, soothing her. "I know. But you are very brave, too," he said with his gentle voice. "One of them had already punched me so I have to make sure it won't happen again so I ran fast. But I kicked him between his legs, though," she said, nodding to herself. "I ducked through alleyways so that I could avoid the other villagers. When I reached the forest near the training grounds, it started raining. I thought they would stop chasing me but they didn't. So I just ran and ran and ran. I hid into the bushes when I found a dead end outside this place." Itachi leaned his head back to look at her face. "How did you end up here?" "The entrance is at the west side. The training grounds outskirts headed east. That's where we found your trail." "Dunno. I just ran and hid, before I found that." She pointed the hole where she came from. "I fit through it, so." She shrugged. The preteen looked at it but he didn't comment on it. "And so you found this place," he concluded. But his voice sounded he was a bit astonished. She nodded even without him looking back at her. She yawned, feeling tired all over again. And sleepy. "Okay, you can take me to Gigi's office now." Hatake Kakashi was still tired but 2 hours of sleep was enough for him to function right now. After finishing his morning routine and preparing breakfast, he went to his room to wake up the girl on his bed. The girl he cared so much for was sound asleep, her body tangled over the blankets. Her long blonde hair was all over his pillow. Last night's events were life-changing, to say the least. Right now, he was still disconcerted with what had happened to Naruto. Just the thought of what had occurred made him seethe with fury. More so, it happened when he was outside the village. He gritted his teeth. Had those three Chunins successfully harmed Naruto? He sighed as he sat on the side of the bed. It was an hour before dawn when he escorted the Hokage back to the tower. Naruto was peacefully sleeping on the couch of the Hokage lounge, with Weasel guarding her from the shadows. Uchiha Itachi relayed the girl's story, and after hearing it, he couldn't help but think that perhaps it was fate's fickle way that she had to be chased by those men, in order for her to meet her father. And for Kakashi to find out that the Yondaime Hokage was still alive. Hurt, betrayal and anger coursed through his chest. The Sandaime had kept the truth from him, the only living student of Minato-sensei. Subject Yogen was the Yondaime, and the pit was obviously the place where he was hidden for a long time. For 6 years, Kakashi had believed the Yondaime was dead. It was now apparent that the Sandaime didn't trust him enough to keep him in the loop. And Kakashi resented the old man for that. He sighed. If he thought about it, Minato-sensei being alive, or was kept alive, was the greatest miracle that happened in Konoha's history. Battling with the strongest Bijou and survive. Yogen. Prophecy. Did that mean Namikaze Minato was really the child of prophecy, just like the Toad Sage, Jiraiya-sama believed? When Kakashi saw Minato-sensei last night and realized the sight of the late Yondaime wasn't a mirage or any genjutsu, it took all his remaining strength to keep himself from having an emotional breakdown. To be honest, Naruto's presence helped. It was a great relief to find her there, alive and unharmed. And his former teacher's own breakdown made him set aside his emotional struggle. He helped the Sandaime and the medic team to calm Minato-sensei down while Naruto was being taken away of the place. Hearing his former teacher's howl of protests and cries for Naruto nearly overwhelmed him. It was painful to watch Minato-sensei in that state, but a big part of Kakashi was jubilant, and he felt blessed, knowing that the man he respected the most was still alive. Kakashi wasn't known a prodigy for nothing. Even without any explanation from the Sandaime, his mind had put some pieces together about this huge secret. He didn't have to observe or verbally inquire for answers. After they had stabilized Minato-sensei's condition, Kakashi didn't bother asking the Sandaime for explanations. For one, Anbu never questioned their supreme commander. Not even for personal reasons. Kakashi was an Anbu operative and Sarutobi Hiruzen was his Hokage. What you learned tonight is classified, the Hokage specified to those uninformed people inside the room, right after they stabilized the Yondaime. Only a few people are aware of this situation. Leak the information, you will be executed right away, by me. Am I clear? There were some things he concluded. He was sure that the Anbu who appeared in the office was Shiranui Genma, former member of the Hokage guard platoon of Minato-sensei. Meaning, Genma was one of the in the know. A bitter smile formed on his lips, feeling somewhat jealous of the man. Kashi ni? He was brought out of his musings when he heard the voice. He turned his head to the girl and forced a smile. Good morning, Naru. I was about to wake you up. The little girl groggily rubbed her eyes and yawned, before looking around. Am I at your apartment? He nodded. Yes, sweetie. Yours was trashed last night, remember? This wasn't the first time Naruto had slept in his apartment. Even when she was younger, he would secretly take her to his home, let her eat proper food, and give her little things deprived of her. When she turned 5, he started her education, with Sandaime's permission. When he had free time or when he was her guard, he taught her counting, reading and writing. He even introduced her to shinobi arts little by little. And when Uchiha Itachi became a part of her protection team 5 months ago, the 11-year-old boy did the same. She would be entering the academy when she turned 8, or maybe next year if the Hokage or Minato-sensei permitted it. It would be better if she had the basic knowledge without the entire village's awareness, not even the council. She sat up and sighed, before she looked away. I don't want to go back there. He bit back a snarl. Of course, she would be terrified, but this was more. It seemed that she had reached her limit. Ever since she started living on her own 7 months ago, she never said those words. She had always endured even if she didn't understand the reason why she was being treated so badly. But this was the first time he heard her say that. Last night's attack really had shaken her. If Minato-sensei learned everything about his daughter's life, to what an innocent child had to endure, Kakashi was sure there would be blood, maybe death even. He had tried to adopt Naruto when she turned 4, twice. But the council had vehemently forbade him to do so. And since the Sandaime's power had been virtually stripped since the Kyuubi attack, he wasn't able to contest the decision. There was the council's excuse of his priorities should lie first to the village because he was a shinobi, or that he had no child-rearing capabilities and time to be a guardian. He could understand that it was impossible for him to take care of a baby. He was still a newly recruited Anbu back then, and only 14. When he turned 18, he asked the Sandaime to be her guardian but was denied. But in truth, the council just didn't like the idea of someone raising her or simply getting too attached to the village's Jinchuriki. It was an unspoken truth, but they were worried he or anyone might control Naruto, the container of the strongest bijou. That was why they denied him to personally take care of his sensei's daughter. Then, you won't, he said with finality. Now, how about you take a bath while I set the table? Her eyes widened in delight. Ramen? Nope, fish and vegetables. Veggies are yucky, kashi ni. She whined adorably. He let out a stifled laugh. Your body needs nutrients. He stood up and walked towards the door. Go take a bath. 15 minutes later, they were sharing the simple breakfast he prepared. He was already wearing his standard Anbu uniform, minus the mask. Naruto was clad in her new orange tee with red spiral design on its front, white shorts and a black standard shinobi sandals her size. He had helped her fix her hair in her usual pigtails, some bangs framing both sides of her face. I still don't understand why you insist on wearing a mask, Kashi-ni. I mean, you still wear your Anbu mask, so why bother? She asked, breaking the ice. I don't like people to see my face. Huh? How come? She seemed confused. You let me see it. He chuckled. And I trust you won't tell anybody about it, he said and continued eating. Naruto was probably and would be the only person alive to see his face. Not even Minato-sensei had seen it. Just like right now, his face mask was pulled down. He wasn't even supposed to let her see his face. He could still remember how this manipulative little girl had used a simple tool against his impregnable willpower, a pair of azure innocently wide, sparkly eyes. Yes, the terrifying puppy dog eyes. From then on, he kept in mind never to underestimate the girl. Even without shinobi skills, a little girl held an experienced ninja at her bidding. First, his Anbu mask. And then, his face mask. Hell, even the stoic and emotionless Uchiha prodigy had been defeated, and had him show her his face. The infamous Sharingan they both possessed was nothing compared to her puppy dog eyes jutsu. Shame, really. But then again, a part of him really didn't mind Naruto seeing his face. Since Minato-sensei's supposed death, he had clung to the little girl like a lifeline, and he knew that. She was someone he could share his connection to his sensei with. Naruto didn't know her importance to him. Showing her his face was nothing compared to what she had unknowingly given him, a will to live. They finished their food in comfortable silence. He washed the dishes afterwards while Naruto sat on the couch, waiting for him. When done with the chore, he secured the place with a privacy seal and sat on the free space of the couch. Naru, we have to talk before we go, he began. She nodded inquisitively. Remember the man you discovered last night? You mean the crying man? Tachi-ni said he'd just woken up from a long sleep. He chuckled at her description. He wondered what would happen if she found out that the crying man was her father. He inwardly grimaced at that. Sooner or later, Naruto would learn the truth about everything and he had no idea how she would take it. He wanted to believe that she would understand and accept everything, but even he was uncertain about that. For now, the only thing he could do was give her a heads up. Yes, about him, he answered back. You see, he was in a state of coma. That's what Weasel meant about long sleep. That man you found was asleep for 6 years because he was sick. Naru's jaw slackened at the information. Last night was the first time he woke up. He slept that long? Was her shocked response. What if he's hungry? What if he wanted to pee? Or poop? Kakashi snickered. Ma. Let's leave the answers to the doctors, okay? Anyway, you have to keep about what you saw last night a secret. He looked at her with a serious face. That man is an important ninja of the village and only a few people know about his condition. In fact, the whole village believed he died. That's. Contemplation and understanding were written on her face. That's sad. Is that the reason why he cried when he saw me? I'm the first person he saw. More or less. He wanted to tell her a bit of the truth, but he refrained himself from doing so. It wasn't his place. He wouldn't take away Minato-sensei's right and opportunity to do it. So, you have to keep it a secret until Sandaime or that man allowed us to not. Not a single word, Naruto. Do you understand what I'm saying? He knew she could keep a secret. She hadn't told anyone about 2 people educating her, for one. Another was about his face. But Minato-sensei's status was the most classified information she would be keeping, and as assurance, he had to drill it into her head. Because there were more to come, and a child her age could only keep so much. Yes. Naruto nodded solemnly. I will, Kashi-ni. And you can't go back to that place, he added. Unless you're with me or Weasel, or with Hokage-sama himself. But why? She whined but then scrunched her face. Does his family know what happened to him? Kakashi wanted to laugh wryly at the irony of her question. One who considered the Yondaime family and one who was the biological daughter, were both kept in the dark. Right now, I think they had been told but not in details, he answered plainly. So, do we have an agreement? She smiled. Believe it. Good morning, Gigi. The ever-awesome Uzumaki Naruto is here. Naruto hollered when Hound opened the door of the office. She trotted enthusiastically towards the Hokage's desk, while Hound disappeared into the shadows of the office. She could feel Weasel's chakra, along with 3 more familiar ones. But she wasn't close to them, only Hound and Weasel. Good morning, my child, the old man replied, smiling. What you need me for? She asked. I'm a be busy today, you know. The Sandaime chuckled and went along. Oh? What are you going to do today, Naru-chan? She grinned. To prank, of course. Oh, dear. And pray tell who will be your latest victims today? Not telling, she sang. She wanted to sneak into the Anbu compound undetected and test if she had mastered suppressing her chakra. But it was too early for that. Hound and Weasel could easily find her. What more a group of Anbus? She has to test it first to lower-ranking ninjas. The Hokage hummed, conceding. Anyway, you are here today for 3 things. First. He reached for the drawer and took out an envelope. Your allowance. Naruto gladly accepted it. Ikirakus, here I come. She cried as she pocketed the money. The old man let out another chuckle before his face turned a little serious. The second thing is I want you to stay at Hound's apartment for a few days. Yes. She exclaimed, her fist punching the air. She really liked Kashi-ni's apartment. His bed was soft and comfy. And she always felt safe there. Plus, she would get more chance to take care of Aki-san. But hey, does it mean he won't be on a mission? He will still be but not outside the village. Ack. Give him a break, Gigi. His hair is all gray now because you won't let him rest. And he's not even 30, Tibayo. Because of her keen sense of hearing, she heard some Anbu's silent snicker. And even without turning to where Kashi-ni was, she could tell he was glaring at her. She knew he would claim later that his hair was silver and not gray. And the last thing, Naru, the Sandaime continued, with a very serious expression on his face. Naruto instantly realized what he was about to tell her. "Oh, that," she uttered. She strolled around his desk, before she tiptoed and leaned towards his ear. "Kashi-ni told me to keep about the crying man a secret," she whispered with the softest voice she could muster. "I will, Gigi. I promise." She didn't wait for his reply and went back to her previous position. When she looked at the Hokage, he was staring at her with amusement, sadness and guilt, maybe? She had to ask Kashi-ni about that later. Reading people's expressions was one of his lessons to her. The old man schooled his expressions before he smiled at her. "I will hold on to that. Now, off you go, my child. Enjoy the rest of the day." She beamed. "Oh, I will, Gigi. Believe it." The sound of the door opening stirred Minato out of his reverie. He had been awake for an hour now, lying on the inclined bed. He was still weak but better than the first time he woke up. He turned his head towards the sound. The Sandaime entered the room with an Anbu flanking his back. "How are you feeling, Minato?" Sarutobi asked when he stood beside the bed. "Weak but better. The medics checked on me a while ago. Said I should keep myself awake as long as I can and that I'm recovering fast." "That's good to hear." Minato looked at the Anbu standing alongside the Sandaime. Because he was still weak, he wasn't able to sense the operative's chakra signature. But by that gravity-defying silver hair, he could tell who it was. The young man was taller now, with broad shoulders and lean but firm muscles. But since Kakashi was wearing his Anbu mask, it meant he was on duty. When Minato was elected as Hokage, he assigned Kakashi to join the Anbu troops under his direct command. He had witnessed the effect of Obito and Rin's death on his student. Minato felt his decision was the best thing to do, even with his hesitancy at assigning the young man to do covert, high-level and deadlier missions. "You've grown, Hound," Minato commented. "Sensei." Kakashi choked the word. "You can remove your mask, Kakashi," Sandaime commanded. "At ease." A small smile formed on Minato's lips when Kakashi tilted the mask from his face to his temple. So, his student still wore the famed face mask. But his usually cold and haunted mismatched eyes were now looking at him warmly. "It's good to see you alive, Sensei." Minato sighed. He still couldn't believe he was alive. He wasn't able to get some answers from the Sandaime when he first woke up because of the chaos that had ensued. And when all has calmed down, all they were concerned about was his health. "How am I still alive, Hiruzen?" Minato began, hoping the old man could shed him some light. "What do you last remember?" Sandaime asked back. The blonde frowned. Everything was clear to him. Pain and grief filled his chest as he recalled the events of the night of his joy and sorrow. The night of the tragedy. Kushina giving birth to Naruto. The attack of the masked Uchiha. His battle with the man and the Kyuubi. His decision to seal the tailed beast. His and Kushina's final moments with their daughter. Minato swallowed a lump in his throat. His daughter, Naruto. Hiruzen heaved a heavy sigh. "Yes, Minato. She is your daughter." A sob came out of his mouth. Then. "She called me Mr. Why?" "We will talk about her later. At the moment, I want to focus on you," Hiruzen countered. "When I arrived at the battlefield that night, you already performed the Shiki Fujin. Do you remember it?" Minato reluctantly complied and nodded. "Kushina and I were pierced with the Kyuubi's claw. We were dying, saying goodbye to Naruto. I saw our daughter smile before I drew my last breath. The next thing I knew, I was trapped inside the Shinigami's stomach with the yin half of the Kyuubi. I saw the Shinigami's hair grabbing your soul, along with the Kyuubi chakra you took," the Sandaime added. "When the barrier collapsed along with your and Kushina's body, the Shinigami stopped for a few seconds. It chanted garbled words over and over before its hair let go of your soul. I couldn't understand what it was saying. After that, it vanished." Minato took a sharp intake of breath. Why? That's a question he needed to ponder on later. Hiruzen nodded. But you were still dead. The wound the Kyuubi had inflicted on you was so fatal there was no chance of survival. He then rubbed his forehead as if preventing an incoming headache. The village was in turmoil in the aftermath of the attack. The council took over even before I assumed the mantle back. I personally took over the preparations to your funeral. But before your body was to be cremated. Hiruzen paused and heaved a sigh, before a small smile formed on his lips. The Kyuubi's chakra sealed inside you started healing your wounds. What? He asked, stunned. The Hokage nodded sagely. The healing process was in small steps but it was happening. Permission to speak freely, Hokage-sama. It was Kakashi. Granted. Then, why didn't you retract the announcement of Sensei's death, Hokage-sama? His voice was soft but filled with bitter accusation. Why wasn't I told? A chair, Kakashi, if you please. I need to sit this down, the Sandaime intoned instead. Kakashi obeyed, pulling the chair from the corner and placed it behind the aged cage. When the old man slumped himself on the chair, he heaved another heavy sigh. Hiruzen suddenly looked much older than his age. He turned to the youngest shinobi in the room. You have to understand, Kakashi. Even with medics helping the healing process, Minato's condition didn't get better. We didn't get positive results. He was healing, yes, but he has fallen into coma. I wasn't even sure he's going to make it. Had I announced the Yondaime is alive but he died again the following days, what do you think the whole village would feel? What would you feel? To give you hope only to crush it? Kakashi was taken aback. I am well aware of your emotional struggles, Kakashi. I thought it was best to keep Minato's condition a secret from you. It's cruel of me, I know. But I didn't want to give you another dread waiting. Hiruzen took a deep breath. Sakumo, Obito, Rin. You took their deaths hard. You took Kushina and Minato's death even harder. Had you known Minato is alive but he really had died the second time, I worry you'd finally shut down. Hokage-sama. To be honest, even I refrained myself from hoping too much, Hiruzen admitted. I didn't let myself get complacent at the fact that Minato was still alive or that he would recover. Not when Tsunade refused to go back to the village. Didn't we have good doctors and medical ninjas? Minato asked in a curious voice. Hiruzen chuckled. Yes, but we both know that Tsunade is the best, your best chance to heal and recover. I tried to persuade her, sent her messages and almost begged her to come back but she had abandoned healing people. The only person I was hoping who could heal Minato also did have struggles on her own that she couldn't let go. In that state, I realized she wouldn't be able to help. Even Jiraiya gave up relying on her. He sighed and rubbed his forehead. I didn't tell the council about the situation. I was worried they would take advantage of it. Instead, I convened with your Anbu commander, Minato. We decided to keep your true condition to ourselves for the meantime. And I ordered those who knew swear to secrecy. Wait, Minato halted in confusion. What do you mean the council would take advantage of the situation? You were once an active Hokage, Minato. You know they are a thorn in our throats every now and then. He laughed dryly at that. We both know the council has military viewpoint in governing the village. You just made yourself a Jinchuriki and you know what the council thinks about it, a weapon. I had to make sure they won't find out. I had to protect you. They didn't have to know Konoha has two Jinchuriki of one Bijou, especially when the other was in coma. In addition to that, I wasn't sure if the Kyuubi's chakra inside you would act on its own. Worst case scenario, it would again cause devastation to the village. Hence, all the confidentiality in this secured place. Hiruzen turned to Kakashi and smiled sadly. Can you accept my reasons so far? Minato's student slumped his shoulders. I still feel bitter that you kept the truth from me, Hokage-sama. And no, I still can't accept them but I can understand why. The Yondaime stared at Kakashi. He could only imagine what Kakashi felt, knowing all his teammates had died. Only to find out years later one was still alive. Did he suffer from severe depression when he believed everyone was dead, like Minato feared back then? But then again, looking at him now, Minato could tell this Kakashi was better than his younger years. Jiraiya would come back from time to check on you, Sarutobi continued. When he found out you're still alive, he stayed here with you. But as your condition remained the same, he resumed his duties. How long was I in coma? The blonde asked. They could discuss Hiruzen's actions later. So far, the Sandaime's explanations made sense. Hiruzen and Kakashi exchanged meaningful looks before the former answered. 6 years. Minato just nodded, letting the topic go. 6 years, huh? He was in a dead state for 6 long years. Wait. Did that mean the Kyuubi he sealed within him knew about it, all along? Was that the reason behind its knowing looks and cryptic statements? Yes. Yes, that would be it. The Yin Kyuubi let him think that they were inside the Shinigami's stomach. And its roars of fury weren't because they were trapped in a limbo for eternity. It was because he had become its host. That only meant the golden space he was in was his own mindscape, a level of his consciousness shared with the tailed beast. He sighed. That sly infuriating fox. Before I woke up, I was talking with the Kyuubi in my mindscape when we both felt a massive burst of energy, Minato informed the two, shocking them. Wait, Kakashi butted in. You're talking with the Kyuubi? He snorted. From the moment I woke up in the supposedly Shinigami's stomach. But let's talk about that another time. As I was saying, the Kyuubi and I felt that energy surge. Just a moment later, another pulse rushed through me. But it was warm and familiar. It's pure. And then, you woke up, the Sandaime finished. Minato bobbed his head. When I came into, I saw her. Naruto. When I felt her hand holding mine, the same warm energy seemed to crawl all over my body, as if filling me with life. His listeners didn't react, only absorbing this new information. We felt the first energy burst, the Sandaime said a moment later. Right after that, I received a report that there was a change in your condition. We rushed here to find you awake. Minato recalled what the Kyuubi said. It's time. Did that mean it was time for him to wake up? Or it was for something else? And that massive burst of energy. Could it be the Yin Kyuubi inside him sensed its half-chakra all this time? How far is this place from the village? He queried. 7 miles, Kakashi responded. For a human, sensing chakra with that range was nearly impossible. But for a bijou, and a 9-tailed one at that, it was an easy feat. Was last night the first time Naruto had been here? The Yondaime saw 2 different reactions. Hiruzen's eyes narrowed a bit and his lips formed a thin line. Kakashi was suddenly the stoic and cold boy he remembered. But he saw anger in his former student's eyes. Why? Even though he remembered last night, his mind was still hazy and he was overwhelmed. Did something happen to Naruto? Is there something wrong with my question? He demanded. None at all, Hiruzen replied. Too fast to Minato's liking. The Yondaime's eyes narrowed. There was something these two weren't telling him. I may be in coma for a long time but that didn't dull my intelligence, Hiruzen, he remarked snidely. Don't think I didn't notice how you calculatedly avoided telling me about my daughter. And both your reactions just now are giving you two away. Hiruzen sighed. It's Naruto's first time here last night, Minato. She didn't know about this place or about you. The blonde-haired man tried to swallow a sob. Even when he already discerned that his daughter didn't know he was her father, hearing that fact from another was different. And it hurt. It hurt to witness his own daughter looked at him like he was a stranger. Had someone took his place as her father? The reigning Hokage looked at him with sorrowful, guilt-filled eyes. But before he could utter a word, Kakashi interrupted. Sensei, I may have a theory about that energy burst. But I think you already have thought about it. The Yondaime tried to gather his wits. Yes, Kakashi, but just like yours, it's only a theory. I think it was the effect of the merging of yin and yang Kyubi chakra after being separated. I'm not sure if it's one of the reasons why I was awakened, though. He slowly raised the hand which his daughter held last night. He smiled as he stared at it. I want to believe that it was the second one that revived me, that pure and warm wave of energy. Chakra resonance. Minato's gaze instantly turned to Kakashi. Could it be? But, hell, he could believe that this Hinigami didn't take his soul for some unknown reason. How could he not believe Kakashi's idea? You are father and daughter, sensei. Both your chakra resonated to each other, pulling you out of your coma state. The blonde smiled at the possibility. He would not set his first theory aside, but for now, he was more inclined to believe that it was Naruto's chakra that saved him. His little miracle. He placed his hand back on his lap. When I sealed the Kyubi in Naruto, I added some of my chakra to the seal, as failsafe. Perhaps, my own chakra sealed in her, reacted as well. Ma. Kakashi's eye smiled, which confused and amused Minato at the same time. I reckon we believe the second theory. Minato could only agree. Even when I thought I was inside the Shinigami's stomach, my mind was filled with what ifs and some regrets. The one I regretted the most was that I didn't tell Naruto I love her. He tried to blink away the tears starting to mist his eyes. I longed to know her. I have this desperate wish to see even a glimpse of her. He looked at Hiruzen. I'm not stupid. I know you keep on avoiding telling me about her because you worry my seal would break, if and when I feel negative emotions. The two only looked back at him, not saying anything. My wife was a former Jinchuriki, he reasoned. Don't insult my knowledge or my capability. It's not that, Minato, Hiruzen said, worry obvious in his voice. But Minato was undeterred. I was brain dead for 6 years. Give me something to look forward to, in this second life I was given with, he pleaded. Please tell me about Naruto. Naruto sighed loudly as she brought the scroll she was reading down over her lap. She had to finish it because it was part of her lessons for today. But she couldn't understand some words and she was already getting bored. She was done practicing her sensing technique for the day and it was time for reading. She didn't like reading, at all. It's boring. But she had to. That's what her teachers said. She wanted to learn how to throw shurikens and kunais. But she wasn't allowed, yet. She glanced at her teacher for today. They were in their usual clearing, seated on the grassy area. His back was resting against the tree, his mask removed. He was so focused on reading his own scroll seated on his lap. She sighed again, a little louder this time, but she didn't get a reaction. She tried it again. No reaction, at all. You are so rude, Tachi-ni, she huffed, pouting. Finish reading the scroll, Naru, he said, not looking at her. But it's boring. She complained. I don't understand many words. I can't even pronounce them in my mind. It was then he turned his face towards her. As always, she couldn't read his facial expressions, because he had none of it. He was always calm and reserved. Kashi-ni told her once that reading Tachi-ni would be a good training for her. She had seen some, like when he was amused at her, the right corner of his lips would curve upwards. Just barely, though. She had also seen his gaze soften when he talked about his beloved little brother, or when she was crying. But other than that, he was hard to read. That's what I'm here for, to help you understand, he said with a soft voice. Can we skip reading and train me more ninja skills? She attempted. Soon. That again. He and Kashi-ni would always say that, but they never let her, except for chakra control, suppression, sensing and physical exercises. She wasn't yet allowed to train weapons, let alone touch them. When is soon? HN. Uck. It meant, stop asking. She crossed her arms. Why am I not allowed practicing shuriken and kunai throwing? You told me your little brother had started his training and we're the same age. Because I think it's too early for you, he explained. Kakashi-senpai thinks so, too. But why? Because you might hurt yourself or someone else. She pondered on his answer. She understood what Tachini said but. So, it's okay if the villagers hurt me but I can't learn throwing weapons because I might hurt them. The 11-year-old boy's eyes widened a bit. Is that why you and Kashini won't train me? Because you both think I will use it against them? It's not that, Naru. Then what? She insisted. What if you and Kashini are not around when the villagers attack me again? Just like last time. What if I got hurt and I can't run anymore? Or there's nowhere to hide anymore? What will I do then? How will I protect myself? Itachi looked at her for a long time, not saying anything. He seemed pondering on what she said. For a while, he remained quiet, and then he sighed. I'll talk to Kakashi-senpai, he stated. But I won't promise you anything. Yada. She squealed, glomping him. Thank you, Tachini. HN. When her excitement faded, she let go of him and went back to reading with renewed vigor. 2 hours later, she was done and Itachi explained the words she didn't understand. Reading history scrolls was boring but learning some events from long ago wasn't bad. It looked like Itachi enjoyed the subject because he knew a lot about it. Hey, Tachini, Naruto called while she rolled the scroll back. What's your favorite food? She asked randomly. I like dishes with cabbage in it. Ack. Veggies. She moaned. Vegetables are healthy, Naru-chan. Kashini says that all the time, but I don't like 'em. She put the scroll inside the orange backpack Kakashi bought her. What's like having a little brother? She looked up at him when he didn't answer right away. And her eyes widened when she saw the softest expression on his face. And his lips curved into a stunning smile. He was smiling. It's the best thing that happened to my family, Naru-chan, he answered with his usual mild voice. She didn't understand what it meant since she was an orphan, but she could feel his emotion. It was warm and light. There was love in his voice. She couldn't help but smile, too. But deep inside her, there was a tinge of envy. She had always longed to have a family. Gigi told her that her parents died when she was born and she had no older siblings. No one would adopt her and she knew it's because the villagers hate her, for reasons she didn't know. And looking at Itachi's face right now, feeling his love for a boy she hadn't met made her feel a little jealous. He's my whole world, he mumbled as if only to himself. But she heard it. He's so lucky to have you, Tachini. When he looked back at her, the stunning smile was gone but his soft gaze was still there. And you're my little sister? Naruto's breath hitched and her jaw dropped at the declaration. She stared at him in astonishment. She closed her mouth, opened it to say something but closed it again. She didn't know what to say. One of the people she looked up to treated her like a little sister. She was family to someone even if not by blood. He poked her forehead. You don't want to? Tears formed in her eyes and without thought, she jumped and tackled the new brother she had and wailed in happiness. She stayed there while he gently patted her back. Oni-san. Emoto. So, Weasel said that, huh? Kakashi commented after hearing the events that happened to Naruto yesterday. They just finished their breakfast. He was only hearing the story now because he went home late last night. Naruto was already asleep. Yes. And he called me Emoto after I called him Oni-san. The little girl cried animatedly. Kakashi smiled at her. It seemed that this sweet girl had broken some more of the stoic Uchiha's wall. He had spent less time with Naruto these past 2 weeks. He was ordered by the Sandaime to attend to Minato-sensei's needs. While the medics were to ensure the Yondaime's recovery, he and Genma were to help with his physical conditioning. My. I'm jealous, Naru-chan. It seems that you don't need me anymore, he teased. What? No. She exclaimed indignantly. You're my Kashi Niazan and he's Tachi Niazan. That's different. And you're my favorite, Dadabayo. The silver-haired Niazan chuckled at her passionate proclamation. Really? Really, Really? Okay, then. Naruto didn't have friends her age. Because of her Jinchuriki status, the majority of Konoha hated her. The ignorant villagers treated her as if she was the Kyuubi itself. Kids her age avoided her because of the parents' remorseless resentment towards her. The children followed the adults' example. Most people she was close with were old, probably Itachi the youngest. It always amazed him that this girl, despite hardships and challenges, never once lost her childhood innocence. Her positive outlook in life never diminished despite everything. And he wanted to protect that. He wanted her to remain that way. But he had no idea if something in her would change after today. Because today was the day father and daughter would meet again. 2 weeks of waiting was all Minato-sensei could endure. He wouldn't have another day. Now that Minato-sensei's own seal was checked and rechecked by the Toad Sage Jiraiya-sama, the father could meet his daughter again. It was the Sandaime's idea to stall their reunion. The Kage worried that meeting two Jinchuriki of one Bijou would cause problems. With Minato-sensei's current weak physical constitution, he might not be able to control the Kyuubi's chakra. Kakashi understood where the Sandaime was going. But unlike the Sandaime, he fully trusted his sensei. If he managed to control his rage after hearing the life of his daughter, he could control his emotions even more in meeting Naruto. Minato-sensei was almost in hysterics when he heard the truth. Kakashi and the Sandaime told him everything, from the law the Sandaime passed to the current events in Naruto's life. Instead of mourning for the loss of his wife, Minato-sensei mourned for his daughter's fate. He even blamed himself. And the only reason he calmed down was because of Kakashi's and Sandaime's stories of little exuberant Naru's pranking adventure. Kashi ni. Are you going to have a mission today? Kakashi turned to her. Yes, but you're coming with me. Huh? But I'm not a ninja yet. He chuckled. What I mean is you're part of the mission. The little girl looked at him questioningly. Kakashi activated his privacy seal before he crouched in front of Naruto. Remember the man you met? The crying man? Naruto thought for a bit. Oh, him. Minato Oji-san. He smirked at the suffix she used. Yes, him. Do you know who he is? No, but hey, his face looked like the Yondaime Hokage on the monument, and the man in the picture on the headboard. So, she noticed. Yes, he's the man in the picture. He's my Jinan sensei. Ah, so you knew he's sick, she commented. Actually, no. I only found out the night you saw him. She tilted her head a bit to the right, her face showed concern. Is he okay now? He is not at his best yet, but he's a lot better now. Naruto beamed. Then, that's good to hear, T-Bio. And he looks like the Yondaime because he is the Yondaime Hokage, Namikaze Minato, he revealed. What? As usual, her reactions were something to look forward to. She was gaping, eyes wide as saucers. And the what sounded like who what with her exaggerated reaction. It was funny. He is, Naruto, he confirmed. I'm not kidding. But how is that possible? The Yondaime is dead. That's why Gigi is the Hokage now, right? Gigi said so. Remember what we talked about him? I told you he is an important person, he recalled for her. I explained to you what happened to him, that he just woke up from coma. Oh, yeah, she agreed sheepishly, scratching the back of her head. So, what about him? Can I meet him again? I want to see how he's doing. Actually, that's part of my mission. He wants me to take you to him. He wants to meet you again, Naru. Her expression brightened considerably. Ooh, I'ma meet the Yondaime. She hollered. Kakashi laughed and ruffled her hair. You will. But Naru, don't forget that this is still part of the secret. Do you understand? Dada-bio. Then, let's go, he said, deactivating the seal. Get on my back. She literally threw herself on his back, giddy about the meeting. He was a bit worried that her attitude would change when she learned the truth. Minato-sensei said that he would be telling her everything. Naruto didn't know about her parentage and frighteningly more so about being a Jinchuriki. What if she wouldn't understand? What if the truth changed her? She was still so young to understand the weight of her responsibility. He would know the answers later. He just had to help Minato-sensei explain everything. They traveled through the thick forestry until they reached their destination. 4 Anbu were guarding the entrance and others were scattered along the surroundings. But not all of them knew what they were guarding. He then walked along the long tunnel. Since the awakening of the Yondaime, a new barrier seal was placed inside, as well. He couldn't blame the renewed security, though. A 6-year-old child broke into the place without difficulty. That was an embarrassment to the station guards, a shameful wake-up call. Had Naruto been an enemy, a catastrophe would have happened. He brought Naru down when they stopped in front of the room Minato-sensei was occupying. He knocked twice before prying the door open. Holding Naru's hand, they entered. The room had changed since the Yondaime had woken up. There were only some medical equipment left, more chairs were added and some furniture Minato-sensei needed. Said man was seated on a comfortable lounge chair, wearing a white yukata. He was looking straight at his daughter in mixed anticipation, sadness and adoration. Jiraiya-sama was there, leaning against the wall next to Minato-sensei. "Sensei," Kakashi greeted. The Yondaime only nodded, still staring at his child. "Hello, crying man." Naruto greeted boisterously, and waved her hand. Kakashi face-palmed. "Seriously? Naru, I already told you who that man is," he reminded, looking down at her. "I know." She hollered again. "But he's the Yondaime Hokage. I have to make an impression, Dadabayo." He snorted while the toad Sanin chuckled. "Yeah, she sure did make one." Minato-sensei's moniker as Yellow Flash was reduced to Crying Man. "It's sad, really." And then, for the first time since Kakashi and Naruto entered the room, Namikaze Minato found his own voice. "Hello, my darling daughter." The cheeky grin that Naruto was giving the Yondaime slowly turned into a forced timid smile. She felt goosebumps form on her skin. "Daughter." The Yondaime Hokage called her his daughter. Was he her father? "Naruto." His warm voice called. She felt Kashini let go of her hand, but she held as firmly, never leaving her gaze from the Yondaime. This was not what she expected from visiting him. She had only thought how awesome it would be meeting the man. She had only thought she would tell him that she could keep the secret to herself. She had only thought she would just see him. The little blonde stared keenly at the older blonde. They both have the same hair color. Even their eyes shared the same shade. "Daughter." "Father." "Naru, sweetie." Kakashi crouched beside her. "Remember what we talked about him?" She nodded numbly before turning her gaze back to Yondaime. She remembered all their conversation about the man. He was sick for a long time and just only woke up after 6 years in coma, and the village thought he died. Realization hit her. The Yondaime was sick the whole time and he didn't know what happened to his family. But he recognized her when he woke up. He called out her name. He held her hand so tight while he cried. He wailed out for her when Itachi took her away from him. Her lips quivered and her emotions were suddenly in disarray. All this time, she had a father and no one told her? Was it part of the secret? Why did Gigi lie to her? Did Kashini know the Yondaime was her father? Her father. He called her his darling daughter. My father. Naruto took a hesitant step forward and stopped. She didn't know what to do, or what to say. She was overwhelmed with mixed emotions and didn't know what to feel first. There were so many questions lingered on her mind. Are you really my fa? There? She asked tentatively. His smile was sad yet radiant. Yes, darling. I am. He outstretched his arms, beckoning her. But she remained where she was standing as healthy tears began falling down her face, her lips continued quivering. Go to him, Naru. He misses you so much, Kakashi whispered to her ear before he gently pushed the small of her back. Naruto took another step forward, and another hesitant one to another, until she stopped a few inches away from him. She stared at the man's face. He looked better than the first time she saw him. He was staring at her, as well. His sad yet joyful gaze never left hers. She then looked at his hands holding out to her. He didn't move to take her hand, and it was like he was waiting for her to take the initiative. She slowly raised a hand, reaching for his. And she couldn't help a sob when she held it. "Daddy," she mumbled. He gently pulled her to him as she cried. He hugged her so tight while she clung to him, both of them wept at their reunion. She could feel his lips kissing her head helplessly, mumbling her name over and over. She could feel the pain in his voice. His remorse and happiness. His love for her. "I'm sorry, Naruto. I'm so sorry for leaving you. I'm so sorry that you had to be alone. I'm sorry for everything you've been through." Naruto closed her eyes. The loneliness of being alone for years had surfaced in waves, but she pushed it back. There was no need to feel lonely anymore. She had a father now, a real family. She didn't need his apologies because he was not at fault. He was sick and there was no way he could be around for her. They stayed that way until the heartbreaking cries turned into silent sniffles. But her father's hold on her hadn't loosened. In fact, he would squeeze his hold from time to time and his lips wouldn't leave her head. She felt like she was floating, even when she knew she was still sitting on her father's lap. It still seemed surreal, but she was beginning to acknowledge what had happened. There were still questions, but she knew they had time for them later. Right now, she just wanted to bask herself in this warm feeling. She felt so light, so at ease. When Naruto had finally gathered her bearings, she gently pulled herself out of her father's embrace. She looked at him in the eyes and smiled shyly. "Hi, Daddy." Minato's smile came up brightly. "Hi, Naruto." His bright smile was infectious that she couldn't help grinning broadly. Being the curious child that she was, her mind was sacked with random things. And there was one curious thought that stuck. You were in coma for 6 years, right? You were sleeping that long, never waking up." "Yes, darling," he confirmed indulgently. "I was." "I have a question." She heard Kashini's soft chiding voice. "Naruto." "What is it?" Minato humored anyway. "So, how did you pee? Or poop?" She waited. "You can't just let it go, can you, Naru?" Kakashi nodded wryly. Startled laughter rang around the room, coming from the man she didn't know. Naruto grinned when she saw her father's abashed expression. But he was still smiling. "Let's leave the answers to the doctors, okay?" was his answer. She giggled. It was the same response as Kashini's. She had a feeling they just didn't want to answer her question, maybe because they were embarrassed about it. "What's wrong with pooping or peeing? It's normal." "I like her already, Minato." Naruto looked at the stranger and regarded him with interest. He was a tall man with long spiky white hair, some bangs framing his face. He had red lines running down on his face. He wore a horned forehead protector, but the insignia on it wasn't the leaf symbol of Konoha. He was wearing a mesh armor, underneath the matching moss green short yukata shirt and pants, a red haori and a pair of geta. The man was grinning at her, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "You said you want to make an impression, kid? Well, you did, with flying colors," he stated. "Are you a ninja?" Naruto asked curiously. "Humph." The man pushed himself away from the wall. And Naruto couldn't help grasping her father's robe when the man jumped into a theatrical pose. Mount Myaboku's Holy Master Sennin. Also known as Toad Sage. Jiraiya. He ended it up with dramatic spread arms, open palmed pose. "That's stupid." Naruto shouted in incredulity. "You, brat." He yelled back. "You dare call Jiraiya the Gallant, stupid? I only asked if you're a ninja. You did a sacrificial ritual." She didn't even understand what he said. A sacrificial ritual? Jiraiya repeated, mortified. He turned to Kakashi. What the heck are you teaching her? Reading, Kakashi said sheepishly. Naruto felt his father's arm wrap around her. Yes, he's a ninja, Naru. He's actually my sensei when I was still a Genin, Minato answered, kissing her head. She turned to him. Oh. So, he's your teacher and your Kashini's teacher, she concluded, awe in her voice. Awesome. Minato smiled. Jiraiya-sensei is the one who gave you your name. It came from a book he wrote. She gaped. Really? She turned her gaze back to Jiraiya. You did? The man crossed his arms before smiling at her. Yes, kid. I'm also the one who gave you a green frog wallet for your 4th birthday. Do you still have it? You mean, Gama-chan? She beamed. Thank you. I still have it. Ah, but how come I don't know you? She saw the man's eyes narrow slightly and felt her father tense a bit. She glanced at Kashini for answer. Was it still about the secret? Was she not supposed to ask the question? Well, you know me now, kid, Jiraiya stated, catching her attention back. So, is what I heard true about you being Konoha's prank mistress? He asked, grinning and eyebrows wagging. Naruto's eyes bulged at the title. It sounded awesome. She raised her arm towards the man, with closed fist and thumb stuck out. She then grinned back at him. Believe it. She might have inherited your DNA, but she's so much like Kushina. Minato smiled fondly at Jiraiya-sensei's comment. Naruto had finally succumbed to sleep, tired from the morning's event. She had told him her pranking adventures, her studies with Kakashi and Uchiha Itachi, the progress of her chakra exercises. He looked at his daughter sleeping serenely in his arms. Yes, their resemblance was striking except for her whisker marks and the shape of her eyes. She inherited the latter from Kushina. And her motormouth was definitely her mother's. But there was something else that she got from him, her perceptiveness even at her young age. She obviously avoided telling us about the sad part of her life, Minato said with a bitter smile. Don't forget she's very attentive to almost everything, the Toad Sage noted. She's observing our reactions. Her insightfulness sometimes shocks me, sensei. She's only 6, Kakashi added in agreement. Given she's a kid and acts her age, but sometimes, her way of thinking is much like an adult's. That was because she was learning a lot from her difficult life. No parents to guide her, villagers shunning her and isolation getting to her. She clearly still was a child, but her eyes had shown maturity. He stared at her face. This was the daughter he and Kushina longed to meet. He could still remember the joy he felt when Kushina told him she was pregnant. He could still remember the time he tried to act cool when Kushina began worrying about him, and the child in her womb. He placated her with his bragging, that he would protect their child and that he wouldn't die easily because he's the Hokage. He could still remember how a helpless father he was during the childbirth, panicking like a sissy. And of course, the overwhelming joy he felt when they finally met their newborn daughter. Oh, Kushina. I wish you could see her right now. She's so beautiful. Minato smiled a bittersweet smile as he continued staring at Naruto's face. Protect, he did. He and Kushina had protected Naruto to their death. But to what end? He made her daughter carry a huge burden. He lost his wife and almost lost the chance to witness his child grow up. Minato still hadn't told Naruto about her status yet. A part of him was scared she wouldn't forgive him when she found out. I don't know how to explain everything to her, he found himself saying to no one in particular. She's a bright kid, Minato, Jiraiya-sensei stated sagely. You just have to find the right words to say. And don't do it today. She might not show it, but we all know she's overwhelmed. The blonde sighed heavily. I still can't believe Sarutobi-sama didn't tell her I'm her father. I understood his reasons, sensei, Kakashi amended. He believed she's too young for that. If he told her about you too early, she would ask questions and maybe tell people about it. That's what Sandaime-sama was preventing. Minato could understand the Sandaime's reason to keep Naruto's parentage a secret. He made a lot of enemies during his shinobi life and Naruto was an easy target. To protect her, Hiruzen could only do such. As for forbidding Jiraiya-sensei contacting Naruto or Kakashi claiming guardianship, the council was to blame there. And as for all of Hiruzen's shortcomings, Minato understood them well. Some of his actions were unintentionally cruel but Minato could comprehend the reasons. The old man had to deal the aftermath of Kyuubi attack among numerous matters. Heck, the man should be enjoying his retirement. But he chose to take the mantle back, so he could protect Naruto, so he could protect Minato himself. He felt anger and resentment to the villagers he died to protect. They overlooked the one thing he asked of them, to see Naruto as a hero. He could understand their bitterness over the lives the Kyuubi attack took. But to see the child as the Kyuubi itself was an insult to his skills, an insult to both his and Naruto's sacrifice. Minato, you haven't told us how the Kyuubi escaped from Kushina's seal? The Yondaime was brought out of his line of thoughts by the Toad Sage's question. And he couldn't help but feel a deep-seated hate that he, unnoticing, was leaking killing intent. That man had caused the death of his wife and many others. He felt energy deep within him starting to build into his system. It was coinciding and fueling his rage. He wanted to succumb to it, to unleash it. The two ninja in front of him suddenly tensed and took a step back. "Sensei," Kakashi called out in a frazzled voice. "You're about to leak the Kyuubi's chakra." "Calm down, Minato," Jiraiya ordered. "You're holding your daughter." Minato's eyes automatically drifted to his child, still sleeping in his arms. He collected his self-control and slowly calmed himself. He closed his eyes and regulated his breath, taking air in and out of his mouth in slow succession. The Kyuubi chakra reacted to his rage even with his seal reinforced. This was bad. When he finally reined his emotions, he looked at his sensei with narrowed eyes. "It was an Uchiha, wearing a mask that did it," he answered balefully. Minato's teacher and student paled, shock written on their faces. He began telling them the root of the Kyuubi attack, while keeping his emotions in check. The two didn't fare any better when he ended his story with the man's warning. "So, the Kyuubi didn't attack on a whim. It was manipulated," Jiraiya remarked. "Does Sarutobi-sensei know about this?" Jiraiya asked. "I haven't told him yet. I don't even know if the man was a current clan member or he's a rogue nin. And the only person in Konoha I know who could control the Kyuubi is Uchiha Madara. History had told it." "Are you saying that Madara is possibly still alive?" Kakashi asked, aghast. "I don't know. But the man I fought has an unfathomable power. Do you think the Kyuubi might know something? I tried communicating with it since I woke up but it kept quiet. I don't know if it's because of the seal or the Kyuubi was just plainly ignoring me," the blonde admitted. "Is it wise to keep this information from Sensei?" Jiraiya asked apprehensively. "Even if the man was a current clan member," Minato started. "If I disclose this information, Sandaime and the council are going to be suspicious of the clan. The Uchihas aren't someone who will remain quiet. If they noticed they were being watched, it would cause a lot of problems. And if this information was leaked, innocent members of the clan will suffer most. They will be like Naruto, shunned and hated. A civil war will loom and then what? Another destruction." He took a deep breath. "I'm not fond of the village right now. But that doesn't mean it has to suffer devastation again because of an unverified fact." Silence veiled the room. Minato took another deep breath. "I don't want to ponder on anything else right now. I just have my life and my daughter back. I just hugged her the first time. All I want to do right now is spend time with her and make up for the lost times." The two could only nod in understanding. Naruto stared at the picture she was holding in awe. Jiraiya Oji-san gave it to her. For the first time in her life, she finally had an idea what the woman who gave birth to her looked like. In the picture was her mother, sitting on a couch beside her father. Minato's hand was placed on the center of the woman's belly. They were both looking at the camera, both had beautiful smile on their faces. Kushina was her name. Uzumaki Kushina. She's so beautiful, she uttered almost to herself, tracing her mother's face on the picture. She felt her father kiss her temple. She is, darling. She was sitting on his lap, her back resting against his chest with his arms wrapped around her. Both of them were looking at the picture. Her father had already told her how her mother died. He told her that he and Kushina used their bodies to shield her from an enemy attack. It was heartbreaking to learn that her mother died protecting her the night she was born. Kushina saved her daughter's life in exchange of hers. Uzumaki Kushina, a woman to admire and look up to, a mother who loved her child so deeply. Her hair is pretty, too, she added, still looking at the picture. Uh-huh. Her father chuckled. I fell in love with her hair first, actually. Naruto giggled. Really? And do you know who I fell in love with next? Who? Wasn't it bad? Falling in love with someone else when he already loved her mother. Her father pointed her mother's stomach on the picture. You fell in love with her belly? She asked, both amused and confused. No, my darling, he answered, chuckling. I fell in love with the baby on her belly. You, Naruto? She tilted her head upwards to look at her father's face, before smiling at him. Naruto really loved having a father. It was still new to her since it only had been 2 days since she found it. But she was getting used to it. They were getting to know each other each day. She enjoyed listening to his childhood stories and he liked hearing about her pranks and her other activities. Hearing her call him daddy was something he loved immensely, she could tell. His eyes would brighten, as well as his smile. Saying I love you to him was a different story. She hadn't said the words yet. It wasn't that she didn't want to but because she couldn't. Her father was still a stranger to her, having spent 2 days with him. It wasn't easy uttering the words when she knew she wouldn't mean it. One thing she would never do was lie to her father. That would hurt him. She looked back at the picture. She had heard stories of her parents from Kashi-ni and Jiraiya Oji-san. She learned that her father was a genius ninja of his generation while her mother was loud, brass and bold. Her father was hailed as one of the strongest ninja in Konoha's history and earned the name Konoha's Yellow Flash. Her mother was the red hot-blooded habanero because of her short-tempered and scary personality. According to Kashi-ni, she's strong. And to Naruto's delight, she and her mother shared a verbal tick, her Dadabayo and Kushina's Dadabane. Naru, I have to tell you something, her father said. Noticing his tone, the blonde girl moved out of her father's lap and put the picture on the coffee table. She then sat cross-legged on the free space of the couch, facing him. The seriousness in his voice was different from when he told her about her mother. She felt like what he was about to tell her was something bigger. Do you know about the Kyubi no Kitsune? Her father asked lightly. The child shook her head. I think it's in the history book Tachi-ni wanted me to read but I haven't reached that part yet. Hey, did you know that Gigi was called God of Shinobi? That old man doesn't look strong, I tell you. The older blonde snickered at that. That man didn't become Hokage for nothing, sweetie. He's strong. She looked at her father unconvincingly. Uh-huh. Minato stifled a small laugh, ruffling her hair. Believe or not, darling, Sandaime-sama is strong. He then took a deep breath and looked at her with determined gaze. You might hate me for what I'm going to tell you but you have to know the truth. Naruto just nodded. She doubted she could hate the man who sacrificed his life for her. No matter what truth he was about to say, she would try her best to understand it. I will tell you the details later, her father began. First, the Kyubi no Kitsune is an immensely powerful tailed beast, a living form of enormous chakra. A 9-tailed bijou. It cannot be defeated or killed even by a strong ninja. However, it can be sealed. To avoid the Kyubi from rampaging and unleash its destructive power, it has to be sealed into a vessel, a human with a special chakra. The vessel is a Jinchuriki. She nodded. Kyubi no Kitsune was a bijou. A human vessel with special chakra, Jinchuriki. Understood. Minato looked at her somberly. Your mother, Kushina, was a Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. The sound of Naruto's gasp was lessened by her palm that covered her mouth. Her eyes widened and her heartbeat started to increase. Her father stopped explaining, as if waiting for her to absorb the information. Is that the reason she died? She asked carefully. She was told that her mother died protecting her from an enemy. Did that mean that the Kyuubi was the enemy? Her father's lips curved into a bittersweet smile. Yes and no. But if it confuses you, she was chosen to be the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki when she still was a kid. Her Uzumaki blood held a strong life force and special chakra that can hold the Kyuubi. She was already a vessel way before you were born. What do you mean yes and no, then? And why did you say I might hate you? Before things started to get more confusing, her father unfolded the events during the night of her birth. There was only so much her young mind could understand, but she tried. She tried to accept the overwhelming truth about that night. And she finally understood what her father meant about hating him. Naruto was a Jinchuriki. He didn't say it, but she just knew right then. That was why the villagers hated her. She had inside her the beast that destroyed homes and took away many lives. They believed she was a monster because she harbored a monster. She understood now. Naruto's heart was filled with pain, sorrow, pride and love. The torrent of tears she shed was for her, for the pain her own village had caused her, for their blame for something she had nothing to do with. Sorrow. For her mother who bravely faced death and lost. For her father who fought a man, a beast and death. Sorrow for the choices he made that night. Sorrow for her parents' short moments of meeting their child, for the lost chance to raise their daughter. Pride for her parents' valor, for their gallantry while facing a much stronger opponent. And love for the two people who didn't hesitate protecting their newly born daughter. Love for her parents who loved her dearly. She realized she was back on her father's lap, and he was holding her tight. She could feel her shoulder getting wet and she knew he was crying, too. Forgive me, Naruto, he said, his voice filled with regret. Forgive me. She only hugged her father. She had no idea what to say to him. What could a mere 6-year-old child say to a father on that? Would blaming him, hating him change everything? No. It would not solve anything. It would just make things worse. It would not bring her mother back. It would not bring 6 years of her and her father's life back. Besides, it was not hard to forgive him or hard to understand why he chose her. That was a logical choice to begin with. She was an Uzumaki. To seal the Kyuubi no Kitsune. She gasped. The Kyuubi no Kitsune sealed in her. A cage. The creature in her dream. Kurama. Naruto slightly pushed her father's chest so she could face him. Dad, I think I met the Kyuubi. Her father stiffened and looked at her with immense shock. What do you mean you met the Kyuubi? The painful revelation completely forgotten for the meantime, she told him her conversation with the beast. And it said its name is Kurama, she finished. After that, I woke up. To see her father's eyes almost bulging out and mouth agape was funny. She made the Yondaime Hokage speechless. Cool. It has a name? Her dumbfounded father asked. Sure, why not, she answered casually. I gave Kashi ni Aki-san, so it's not impossible for the Kyuubi to have its own. Aki-san? Yeah, the pet plant. A pet plant? He deadpanned. Dad, you're just repeating my words, she huffed. However, she was inwardly glad that the mournful atmosphere was gone. She didn't like feeling it. Minato blinked and gathered his senses back. Right. We're getting off topic. He took a deep breath. So the Kyuubi told you its name is Kurama. Aha, she replied, nodding. I really thought it was just a dream. Her father was silent for a moment, in deep thought. Do you want to meet it again? How? Minato wiped the drying tears on her face. There's what called a mindscape. It's a level of consciousness wherein the Jinchuriki and Bijou can communicate with each other. Oh, then I can meet the other Kurama sealed in you? Cool. Naruto, the QB might be sealed but it still can harm us, Minato chided in a soft voice. To be honest, I'm not sure meeting them at the same time is a good idea. Then why did you ask me if I want to meet Kurama again? She pouted. You're rude, Daddy. Getting me all excited. Just like Kashi-ni and Tachi-ni. She muttered. The Yondaime laughed heartily at her childish behavior. She smiled. She could tell that the heavy burden he was carrying had lightened. She could see a lighter expression on his face. And she knew her behavior didn't do that. It was because he finally talked to her about it. Maybe next time, Minato amended, kissing her cheek. She nodded in acceptance. Do you think Kurama can hear me, though? Even without going to the mindscape? Yes, my darling. I think it can. She smiled and touched her stomach. Kurama, if you can hear me, I'm sorry you have to be sealed inside me. You must have been lonely there because you have no one to talk to. But don't worry. I'll visit you when Dad allows me to. She nodded to herself, satisfied. She then reached for her father's stomach and gently touched it. Kurama, that is sealed in my daddy, I'm sorry, as well. I don't know if you really want to attack the village that night, but controlling others is bad. That man did a bad thing, so I think what happened is not all your fault. And thank you for keeping my dad alive. Without your chakra, I won't be able to have a chance having a father. Pleased with herself, she looked at her dad and smiled. There, I said it. Minato looked at her with a blinding, most loving smile. I'm sure they both heard you, you darling child. Minato rested his back against the headboard after putting his daughter on the bed. Naruto had fallen asleep again before Kakashi could take her back to the village. It has been the routine for the past 3 days. Kakashi would bring her to this place in the morning, and take her back to his apartment at night. If Minato were to choose, he wouldn't let Naruto out of his sight. Right now, he didn't trust the village. The only thing that was stopping him from demanding that Naruto should stay with him was the fact that she was staying with Kakashi, and the young man guarding her. Hiruzen refused to let Naruto stay out of the village even overnight because it would raise suspicions, and it was the last thing the Sandaime needed at the moment. So, Minato had compromised. He closed his eyes and listened to his daughter's steady breathing. The Sandaime wanted him back to the village, but Minato refused to go. He wasn't ready to see the village that betrayed him. Yes, he felt betrayed, and forgiving them was not on his list as of the moment. Given they didn't know who Naruto was, but that didn't lessen his anger and resentment towards the majority of the villagers. He wasn't ready to face the people who hailed him as village hero while they trampled on the legacy he left behind. And besides, his primary problem right now was him being another Jinchuriki. While the seal was holding the QB's chakra well, he wasn't sure if he could control it, if he witnessed the villagers' treatment to his daughter firsthand. He might unleash the QB's power, maybe too willingly, so better stay away. He was a compassionate man, but he also was a protective father. And right now, he was a father who would slash throats if he heard anyone who would call his daughter a demon child. Or he might kill the Chunin who tried to harm his daughter, in front of the whole villagers. For now, he didn't want Hiruzen to announce his situation, nor him taking back the Hokage mantle. For now, he would remain dead. Daddy. He opened his eyes and looked to his side, expecting an awake Naruto. She wasn't. His little daughter was still asleep, dreaming probably of him. Her hand, however, was moving as if reaching for something. Minato smiled and caught it, gently holding it. He then used his free hand to brush the hair away from her face and to touch her whisker marks. Minato wouldn't deny that he still was overwhelmed with everything, and he knew his daughter felt the same. 6 years. He lost 6 years of his little girl's life, and 3 days of being together wouldn't fill the void instantly. He understood that. Time lost and time to gain. He was alive, and there would be time to make up for everything. The 3 days he had spent with Naruto was full of discoveries. Hearing her call him daddy always made his heart stutter in joy. He immensely enjoyed watching his daughter, committing to memory every detail of her vivid azure eyes, her golden tan skin, her angelic smile, her infectious giggles, her vibrant sing-song laugh, her heart-wrenching cry. Naruto had been very accepting of the truth. He knew it wasn't rational to explain it to a 6-year-old. She was too young, too innocent to understand the gravity of the situation. But deep down, he also knew that Naruto had lost her innocence the moment he sealed half of the Kyuubi inside her. He had tasked her big responsibility a child shouldn't have. And she had been generous, accepting the truth, never blaming him. Hell, she didn't even blame the Kyuubi. Speaking of the Kyuubi. As a protective father, he knew he had to do something about what Naruto told him. Kurama, the mighty fox, spoke to her. Why would it tell its name to his daughter so freely when not even Kushina knew about it? Could it be both half were planning on something? The last words of the Yin Kyuubi spoken to him still lingered on his mind. It's time. That statement still had his mind reeling. He was a very cautious man. He had to find answers before it's too late. Whatever the parting words meant, he would not let his daughter pay for his mistakes. Decision made, he gently lifted her shirt, exposing her abdomen. With a moment of hesitation, he gathered chakra to his palm and placed his hand over Naruto's belly. He then closed his eyes. When he opened them, he was welcomed by dark watery passages. Was this Naruto's mindscape? His heart clenched tightly. This was his daughter's level of consciousness as a Jinchuriki. The blonde man sighed. Kyuubi, it won't make you a lesser being by telling the truth. I didn't ask to mock you. I asked because I care for my daughter's well-being. And to be honest, I think you also care for her. I don't think you ever told even Uzumaki Mito-sama your name. Silence, mortal. I only told your offspring my name because she asked. And I'm not hostile towards her, not because she has a pure heart. The kid is loud, annoying and stubborn. Her innocence is absurdly infuriating. Minato's lips curved into a smile. Yeah, Kurama was somewhat flustered, if he could call it that. It might have been shouting, but it was obvious the Kyuubi liked his daughter. It just said Naruto had a pure heart. And maybe, his child's innocence was purifying, albeit slowly, Kurama's accumulated hatred and malice. He was relieved to say that the fox cared for Naruto. Maybe not overly fond, but it was a nice start. He wouldn't have to worry about Kurama hurting or manipulating his daughter anytime soon. Thank you, Kyuubi, he said kindly. I don't need your gratitude, you puny mortal. Don't put me in the same category as the other half of me, intrigued with your confounding personality. Oh dear. I think it's time to go. He was hearing things that he knew he shouldn't have. The Yin Kurama was intrigued with him? That's unfathomable but nice to know. And a blabbering Yang Kurama was something he never thought he'd witness. What about the fist bumping you did with Naruto? Kurama scoffed. As if I'd tell you. So long as you won't hurt my daughter, then it's fine, he conceded. If you don't have any more questions, then leave. I'd rather be sleeping than having small talks with you. Thank you for your time, Kyuubi. He was about to turn his back when the Kyuubi spoke again. As a generous gesture, I'll tell you something. I freely offer some of my powers to your child. The question is how she will handle it. Or how you will handle the half of me. Remember, I hate you humans. Minato gasped, but he was already out of Naruto's mindscape. What did Kurama meant by that? His mind was already in gears, assessing his conversation with the fox. The warnings and the hints. Sensei? He looked up and saw his student standing at the doorway. Kakashi, he called out, using a commanding tone that he often used when he was Hokage. His student was surprised but mechanically stood straight. Tell the Sandaime and Jiraiya I need to speak with them. Sarutobi Hiruzen had expected this to happen, but some part of him was hoping it wouldn't. He stared at the young Hokage, looking at him with a determined expression on his face. Namikaze Minato wouldn't be deterred. His successor was leaving, taking Naruto with him. Give me a reason why I should allow this, Hiruzen prodded. You may not be the Hokage right now, but you still are my shinobi. Hence, I have authority and you are under my command. I already told you about the masked Uchiha. I don't know if he knew or not that I'm another Kyuubi Jinchuriki. But if he finds that out or that I'm alive and staying here, He might attack again, Minato explained. Right now, I have no control over my power and I'm still gaining my strength back. I'm not strong enough to defend the village. Then, why take Naruto? I will not leave my daughter at a hostile environment, the blonde stressed with narrowed eyes. Also, the Kyuubi might not have directly said it, but I think it wants Naruto to have control over its power. Do you really believe that, Minato? Jiraiya asked his student. The Kyuubi might be tricking you. Minato shook his head. No, sensei. The Kyuubi might be a sly and cunning creature, but I know lies when I hear it. The young Kurama didn't admit it, but I can tell it had taken a liking to Naruto. The young Hokage looked away with a wistful expression. When Kushina and I were on death's door, I told her that our daughter will be the savior of the future. I firmly believe that. I had faith in Naruto, I still do. He looked back at his mentor, a new set of determination in his gaze. Given time and proper guidance, Naruto can control her power. I just know it. A part of Hiruzen wanted to tell Minato that he was being stubborn and that he wasn't the only one who lost someone the night of the Kyuubi attack. Hiruzen also lost his wife, Biwako. But he didn't have the heart to stress it to the young Hokage because unlike Minato, he spent a long time with his wife. They had children they both had the privilege and honor raising. Minato lost Kushina, sacrificed his child and almost died protecting the village. How could he not allow this young man to have his time and attention solely to his daughter? The old Hokage sighed in defeat. And here I thought I would be looking forward to my second retirement. He shook his head and tried to force the guilt away. He was on a mission right now. He walked towards where the small light was coming from. When he reached it, he saw a huge space and in front of him was an enormous cage. There was huge seal over the bars. But what made the Yondaime narrow his eyes was the Kyuubi locked inside the cage. It was standing tall, its tail swirling hypnotically. Its red slitted eyes were staring at him in disdain. It was baring its fangs and growling softly, clearly sending him a message. It's good to see you again, Kurama, he greeted amicably. Yondaime. It roared. You dare call me by my name? Come here. I'll tear you to shreds. If it wasn't for a serious matter, Minato would have smiled at the beast's behavior. The Kyuubi didn't like to be called by its name, by the one who sealed it. And its resentment to him was clear. I didn't come here for pleasantries, Kyuubi, he amended. And you know that. I don't have to tell you anything, Yondaime, the Kyuubi sneered. Oddly, the fox seemed to calm down. Even for the child you freely told your name? He tried. Here I thought you tailed beasts hate your containers. Kurama seemed taken aback with his audacity. You mock me, mortal? Wait until I get out of this cage, the Kyuubi warned. You know, the other half of you is a better conversationalist than you are, he remarked lightly. He decided to face the fox seriously. I sealed my remaining chakra with you 6 years ago. I can always use it to know what I want to know. But I'm here in front of you, trying to at least be civil and less intrusive. The Kyuubi blew out its breath from its nose and eyed him for a long moment. I have learned things when I reconnected with the other half of me, Kurama stated after a while. I don't appreciate you coming here, but I'll allow at least this much. What do you seek? Finally. Was I awoken after years in coma because of the merging of your chakra or because of mine resonated with my daughters? The fox sneered. There are things better left unknown, mortal. You humans tend to use the knowledge you gain without realizing you're already overstepping your boundaries. Your thirst for knowledge knows no bounds that you don't even realize you already are destroying the balance of nature. Minato could accept that. But that also meant even if the Kyuubi knew the answer, it wouldn't tell him if he asked why the Shinigami didn't take his soul. I understand. He took a deep breath. Is the man who manipulated you 6 years ago, Uchiha Madara? I cannot be sure. But only someone as strong as him can pull that off. Heed my warning, mortal. He will come again, and when he finds out you have the half of me, you will find yourself facing the same predicament that happened 6 years ago. Only this time, the objective is either you or your child. Can your child protect herself by then? Or will you, again, succumb to your suicidal tendencies? Minato's eye twitched at the last statement. He decided he didn't like the QB's innuendo. Its twisted sense of humor was something. The term suicidal tendencies it used struck a nerve. But what was Kurama's interest in Naruto? Then, what about Naruto? What's that about the conversation she had with you? Why? Why tell her your name and not my wife? He asked in succession. And QB, I don't want cryptic answers. Why am I being less hostile to her? Is that what you mean? You heard the child's touching speech and I'm sure the other half of me did. The lighter red-orange fox-colored decided to flop its stomach on the floor and rested its muzzle atop its crossed-clawed hands. You mortals regard us, tailed beasts, as manifestations of hatred, monsters even, when in fact it is you humans that made us monsters, using and manipulating us as tools and weapons over time, regarding us with no respect. Yes, perhaps we're the symbolism of hatred and we hate humans. But unlike most of you mortals, we know when and who to respect. You are saying you respect my daughter, then? Minato probed. It would be hard to believe that the QB no Kitsune, strongest among the nine-tailed beasts, respecting a mere human. The distaste in its voice while it was talking never waned. No, I do not respect your child. I just don't have a reason to hate her. She, like me, didn't have a choice in this situation. You are lying, he stated. The QB answered too fast, a telltale sign it was avoiding to tell the truth. I don't. Its voice thundered around the place. If you don't believe me, then, get out of this place or I'll make you. Minato narrowed his eyes. You said my child's touching speech. What do you mean by that? I don't mean anything by that. The QB retorted angrily. Minato turned to him. You realize that I cannot lead the village while I'm feeling hostility over its people, Hiruzen. That would be against your teachings and beliefs. The blonde sighed. Give me time to deal with my emotional struggles. And give me time to be a father to my daughter. The off-duty Anbu operative took a step forward. Sensei, I'll go with you. Hiruzen bit back a sigh. If Minato also took Kakashi with him, Konoha would lose one of the finest shinobi it had. To his inward relief, Minato smiled sadly at his student. No, Kakashi. I need you here. But you're one of the few people I trust and I need you to help Sandaime watch over the village. Minato's gaze softened. Konoha is still my home, Kakashi. It's not like we're not going back. I just want time to be with my daughter without thinking of other responsibilities. I already have a big one as it is, being another Jinchuriki. With a resigned sigh, Kakashi conceded. When do you leave? Hiruzen asked. As soon as I get the list of things I need. Naru, time for your Fuinjutsu lessons. 7-year-old Naruto sighed in both frustration and relief when she heard her father's voice. She stood up from the fallen tree trunk she was sitting on and walked towards the back door where her father stood, waiting for her. What's wrong? He asked when she went inside. She sighed again. I've been practicing the hand seals of Bunshin no Jutsu. Minato chuckled lightly. That again? It's just frustrating, Tbio. She whined. I already told you the problem is not with your hand seals, her father explained calmly. She huffed in response as they walked towards the stairs, leading to the second floor of the inn they were currently staying. When they reached their room, she went straight to the desk. Her father sat on the other side. Fuinjutsu scrolls and books were systematically arranged on the table. They started the subject with refreshing the previous lesson she had learned, before going over to the new one. 2.5 hours later, her father called it a halt. Fuinjutsu was the subject she liked best with her education. She enjoyed learning the art even if it was one of the difficult subjects her father was teaching her. He had commented that it must be because of her blood, being an Uzumaki. Naruto had been introduced to shinobi arts 4 months after they left Konoha. Her father had brought copies of books from the academy and added his own curriculum. He seemed so enthusiastic at teaching her that he devised a system that she would enjoy. And months of studying had taught her so much. She was introduced to taijutsu, ninjutsu, genjutsu, weapons and tools handling, and of course, her favorite subject, fuinjutsu. Her knowledge in history and geography had also expanded not only from the books but also from the stories about her father's shinobi experience. Also, her status as a jinchuriki was thoroughly explained. She now understood both her and her father's duty. They held power but huge responsibility, as well. Her father didn't rush her studies, however. She was learning fast as it was, and he didn't want to overload her brain and body. She had no problem performing hand seals, and with regards to chakra control, her father just continued where Kashini had left off. She had advanced already since she could now do tree and water walking. In ninjutsu, she already mastered doing kawarimi and henge no jutsu. She still sucked at that darn bunshine, though. And she was still at the theoretical phase in genjutsu. Taijutsu was another of her favorites. She still wasn't taught martial arts, but doing physical activities with her father was most enjoyable. They would run laps together, do push and sit-ups and other exercises. Her stamina had developed greatly, and her dad told her he would start teaching her academy and his own taijutsu soon. "It's still early for dinner," Minato commented. "Do you want to take a look around the town?" "Okay, Dad," she answered, beaming. Her father smiled back and took her hand, before they went out of the inn. They walked through the streets, stopped at stalls and checked out shops. They entered a small restaurant when they decided to eat dinner. Walking around towns was one of the things she enjoyed since they started traveling. They already went to 3 countries, staying at town inns. For a child who had never traveled, Naruto was captivated at the sight of foreign places. The first town they went to was Shukuba town, just a short distance from Konoha. In there, her father bought clothes for the both of them, bought necessities for long travels, among others. After 2 days of stay, they traveled south towards Cha no Kuni. And today, they were at a small town outside the capital of Tori no Kuni. But aside from seeing different places, she enjoyed their travel because she was with her father. Over the year, they spent time together doing different things and discovering new ones. They formed a father and daughter bond, a solid friendship. They talked about anything. He would play with her after studies, and since 2 months ago, they were traveling with just the 2 of them. When her father regained his full strength, Jiraiya Oji-san decided to give them time to spend amongst themselves. Naruto wasn't worried someone would recognize her father. Before they started traveling, he used a seal to change his physical appearance. He would change into different looks every now and then. When they were in the privacy of their room was when he would revert back to his actual appearance. Sometimes, he would just use henge. But he preferred the seals. Right now, from the handsome man with blonde hair, he became a not-so-handsome one with dull coffee brown hair and brown eyes. They also didn't have itinerary to follow. For months, they would just decide to go to a country they picked on the map. They, however, avoided staying on a place for a long time, especially if they were at an elemental country. Her father was a cautious individual, she noticed. If he was like that ever since or only because of he was with her, she didn't know. And they didn't go to Tsuchi no Kuni. He wanted to avoid Iwagakure ninjas as much as possible. Not that he couldn't fight them, he was just avoiding catching attention. "Dad, how can I make bunshine work properly?" she asked randomly when they walked out of the restaurant. They were done with dinner, heading back to the inn. "Still can't get over it," the not-so-handsome right now teased. "It's all right, Naru. You don't have to do a bunshine. It's just an E-rank jutsu. But Kawarimi and Henge are both E-rank, too, and I can do them just fine. And my chakra control is a lot better," she reasoned out. "Like I said, you don't have to do it," her dad soothed. "I already have a remedy to that. I don't want to teach it to you yet because it's a B-rank ninjutsu and way advanced at your current pace." "Really? What's it called?" "Kage Bunshine no Jutsu." "Ugh. There's still the word bunshine," she spat in disgust. "Ah, but it's B-rank," her father repeated with a playful voice. Yeah, but you said you won't teach it to me yet, so I'm not excited about it. He chuckled at that. Is that so? They were about to pass a bar when she noticed a woman walked out of its door. It seemed that her father noticed the woman, too, because he stopped walking. Please wait, Tsunade-sama, a voice called out from inside the bar. A moment later, another woman walked out, hurrying towards the first woman, holding a clothed pig. Tsunade-sama? Naruto repeated, still looking at the woman. Senju Tsunade of the legendary Sannin? Jiraiya Oji-san's teammate? The woman was beautiful, with her fair skin, brown eyes, finely lined brows and pinkish lips. Her lighter shade blonde hair was long and styled into two loose ponytails. There was a rhombus-shaped mark on her forehead. Curious. Was that a seal mark? She was wearing a gray sleeveless yukata-like upper garment, a darker shade of gray obi and pants, and heeled strappy sandals. She had a finely built body except for her chest. They're big. Another curious thing was her overall appearance. She looked young. Said Tsunade seemed to hear her and turned to them. Do I know you? Are you really Senju Tsunade? She asked back instead. And what if I am, kid? You're not like Jiraiya Oji-san, she remarked. You're supposed to be the same age as him but you don't look old. Are you using seals, too? Or just henge? You know Jiraiya? Tsunade asked her instead of answering her question. Yes, Oba-san, she replied, nodding. What's your name, kid? Naruto looked at her father, silently asking if it's okay to tell the woman her name. He looked conflicted, though. But in the end, he reluctantly nodded his head. She turned her attention back to Tsunade Oba-san. I'm Uzumaki Naruto. The woman peered over the girl, recognizing the name, before looking at Minato. But this time, her gaze steeled as if ready to attack. Who are you and why are you here with the child? He's Mimi-chan, Naruto answered for her father. That was the first name she came up with when her dad asked her to give him one, when he was hiding his true appearance. He indulgently used it. Mimi-chan gave Tsunade a polite smile. Tsunade's steeled eyes narrowed. Kid, where is Jiraiya now? Naruto shrugged. Dunno. He left us 2 months ago. He is meeting someone from his spy network, her dad explained. He's likely at Yonokuni right now. The female Sannin sauntered towards them and stopped in front of her father. Who are you and why did Jiraiya leave the kid with you? She asked him again. This time, the warning in her voice was clear. I am Mimi, Naruto's mentor. Minato turned to her. Come, Naru. It's late and you'll be working on your taijutsu tomorrow morning. Shizune, Tsunade Oba-san called out. Hi. The next thing Naruto knew, the woman called Shizune began firing senbons using a bow-like device mounted on her wrist, aimed at her father. She almost couldn't track what was happening. She then felt her father grabbing her and he teleported themselves back to their room, using sunshine. What just happened? She asked, still shocked at the turn of events. Why did the lady shot you with senbons? Her father winced, before turning his appearance to normal. I think it's because Tsunade-sama is suspicious of me. But you're my dad? He smiled. But I didn't look like me when she saw us, did I? Right, she muttered, rolling her eyes. She thinks you kidnapped Konoha's Jinchuriki. Her dad chuckled. No. I think she worries because you're Jiraiya's goddaughter. That's why she keeps on asking about sensei. Oh. She scowled. She wasn't worried because I'm related to her? I think it is part of it. She thought for a moment. Nah, I don't think so, 'cause if she really cares, she would have cared a long time ago and tried to see me even once. Her father sighed and led her to the bed. They sat side by side before he turned, facing her. Are you mad at her? Her answer was clear. No. I mean, why should I? I don't even know her. I only learned about her through history subject. Besides, There's nothing to be mad about. She left Konoha even before I was conceived. Minato blushed at the last word. Right. But Dad, maybe you should tell her who you are. She's Gigi's student and Jiraiya Oji-san's teammate. She may be trustworthy. The look of uncertainty washed over her father's face. I don't know, sweetheart. It's not that I don't trust her. But I can't just tell anyone our situation, even if she's a highly regarded Konoha kunoichi. Oh. She looked away. Is there something on your mind? She heard her dad ask. It was her turn to sigh. She's an Iryo nin, right? And was said to be the greatest in the world. She looked at her father. I want to ask her if she could teach me medical ninjutsu. Do you want to be a medic nin? He prodded with both surprise and amusement. She shrugged. Not really. I just want to learn performing healing and medical treatments so I can take care of you when you're wounded. And to make sure you're always healthy. Not that he wouldn't heal if he was wounded, since he had half of Kurama sealed in him. But there was no harm in learning new things. Minato's eyes widened and he smiled fondly at her. That's very sweet of you, darling daughter. She smiled back. If Tsunade Obasan knows who you are, she won't be suspicious anymore, and then, I can ask her if she can teach me some. Naruto couldn't help her tears when she saw what was left of a once prosperous land, her mother's homeland. The Uzumaki clan's once safe haven was now a land of ruins. Uzu no Kuni. It was upsetting seeing Uzushiogakur in its crumbled state. High-rise buildings demolished, beautifully designed pillars shattered, bridges fragmented. She could only imagine what this place looked like back in the day. A land full of life and prosperity. She felt a hand touch her shoulder. Are you sure you want us to stay here? The now 8-year-old girl turned to her father and smiled wanly. I am. I want to learn about my ancestors' village. Her father bestowed her a warm smile in return. We can set up a camp over there, he said, pointing out a small dwelling. It was damaged, barely standing, but it was a good place to camp. It was surrounded by rubble, so hiding and escaping could be done from that location. We can fish and hunt for food. Naruto nodded and started walking towards the riverbank, following the path where the water was coming from. She could sense scanty amount of warm energy around the fallen village. It was almost impossible to detect it, but it was there, and everywhere. An Uzumaki chakra. It was as though her ancestors were protecting the devastated land even when they were gone. She turned to look at her father. He was setting their camp. He didn't seem to notice the chakra mixing with the air. Was it because he wasn't an Uzumaki? Her sensing ability was almost on par with her father's, and he should be feeling the chakra, too, even if it was barely noticeable. She followed where the faint chakra was coming from, but it was hard to pinpoint it. Most she felt was all over the place, as if shielding the land. She walked towards a destroyed structure. It looked like a small shed, with the size of a cupboard. She couldn't read the markings on it, but the chakra felt stronger there. She raised her hand to try feeling it. A wall of chakra? Was it a barrier seal? Naruto? She turned to see her dad not far behind her, giving her a confused expression. What are you doing? Sensing the barrier, she answered, continuing what she was doing. Her dad trotted beside her. What barrier? The young sensor pointed the dwelling. It's shielding the shed. My hand can't get through it. What shed? Naruto faced her father, startled. You mean you can't see the shed? There's only an open space. Her dad said, blinking in confusion for a moment. Then, his eyes lit in realization. What does the barrier feel like? The young Namikaze smiled. It feels. Naruto paused for a moment, finding the right words. Pleasant but protective. It's welcoming but at the same time, impenetrable? She added uncertainly. Her highly perceptive father assessed her words, thinking for a moment. It's a protective seal. A preservation seal, if I'm to guess. If I can't see the shed and you can, it means only the Uzumakas can detect it. If the seal is still intact, it means no one has yet to see what's inside. You are an Uzumaki. Therefore, by birthright you're allowed. How do we deactivate the seal? Follow the pattern. Find where it's at its strongest. She nodded in understanding and closed her eyes. She widened her senses to follow the flow of chakra. It was surrounding a large portion of the place, but the strongest was still at her position. Her father began telling her possible solutions to remove the barrier, but her body moved on its own. She bit her thumb and smeared blood on the wall of barrier with a spiral design. She then made a number of hand seals before gathering chakra on her palm and touched the barrier. Just a moment later, the blood was absorbed by the barrier and it lit, the shed becoming visible to her father, before it dissipated. Both of them were surprised, but her father all the more. How did you know what to do? He asked. I didn't, she said, shrugging. I only tried it since I can see the shed and you can't. You once told me Mom mixed her blood when she's using a barrier seal during the war. Minato laughed lightly. Your mother would have been proud. But why is it so easy to remove the seal? Her dad snorted. Naru, 2 among the hand seals you formed are uniquely for the Uzumaki clan alone. Unless you have an Uzumaki blood, the barrier will not react to the deactivation. Not even I could do it against your mother's barriers. She grinned at him as response. When they walked past the barrier, it activated by itself again, and Naruto couldn't help feeling amazed with her ancestors. A barrier that was active even when the creators were long gone to sustain it was one of a kind. She and Minato walked towards the shed, only to find out staircases heading underground. Using a fire jutsu as light, her dad walked down the stone staircases. She trailed behind him until they reached an underground chamber. There were torches on the wall and her dad lit them one by one. If they weren't that much surprised finding the shed, they were now, when they saw what the barrier was protecting. To seal away this place was probably the last thing her ancestors did before they died. At the other side of the chamber were stacks of probably hundreds of scrolls, piled on high shelves. Oh my God! Her father articulated in amazement. I've heard of this place from your mother. Kushina believed that this place was also destroyed. We all believe that nothing valuable could be found in this land after the destruction. Naruto, you just found Uzushio's prized possession. What are we going to do about them? She asked, still gazing at the shelves. She felt her father's eyes on her. We can let them lie peacefully on this place forever, or we can take them with us. I would want them to remain here, but I'm not 100% sure enemy villages wouldn't find this place. If these scrolls are as important as I think they are, we can't let them fall into the wrong hands. Naruto turned to her father. So we take them to Konoha? Naru, these scrolls are yours by birthright. You are Uzushio's daughter by blood. Konoha will sure benefit greatly from these, but I won't take the decision away from you. Minato smiled and held out his hand. Come, let's go back upstairs. We can decide what we should do about them later. They went back to their campsite to rest. Tomorrow, they would continue their training and probably find out the contents of the scrolls underground. Either way, Naruto would make the most out of her time. She was different from the Naruto a year ago. Meeting Tsunade-sama changed her father's training regimen. Her father took it to another level. After only a year of training, her father said her skills were now at high Genin level. Her speed and taijutsu was praiseworthy, according to him. Introducing her to gravity seals helped. In 1 year, she reached her current level, all thanks to her father. That godsend Kage Bunshin no Jutsu was a technique to be worshipped, and Senju Tobarama-sama was a genius. She really was literally multitasking with the use of it. She utilized her massive chakra to read and train. But her father took precaution, made her promise not to overuse the technique. She took advantage of Tsunade Obasan's in the know position about their secret. It turned out Tsunade recognized the technique Minato used when they disappeared in front of her. Her father had his own version of Shunshin no Jutsu, so it seemed. When the lady confronted them, it was only Minato who talked to her. Naruto didn't know what the two talked about, but Tsunade-sama seemed to agree keeping the truth a secret. The ladies spent time with them afterwards. However, Naruto didn't manage to convince the Iryo nin to teach her medical ninjutsu. Instead, it was Shizune Onizan who did. For 6 months, Naruto studied and trained healing and medical-oriented ninjutsu under her guidance. But she didn't learn an in-depth knowledge about the specialization. Shizune Onizan only taught her what she would need on the battlefield and some basic medical treatment. Personally, Naruto thought that was enough. Tsunade Obasan would give her pointers about the subject from time to time, but that was it. The old lady, on the other hand, gave her medical scrolls she could study at a later time when they parted ways. And Tsunade of the Sannin taught her how to utilize raw power for combat. And darn, how she admired the woman's physical prowess. Naruto was sent flying with just a flick of her finger. As for her Fuinjutsu skills, she was already proficient with the art. She still sucked at Genjutsu, though. But she learned ways to dispel it. On that note, her dad deduced that she couldn't do a proper Bunshine because clone was an illusion. Genjutsu literally meant illusionary techniques, therefore Bunshine fell into that category. Well, for her, that was. But that was just her dad, good with words. He couldn't tell his beloved daughter she pathetically had no talent in Bunshine and Genjutsu now, could he? Minato had introduced her to ninjutsu as well, but she didn't advance too much. Not that she was having difficulty learning, but because he restricted her. She took her studies and training like fish in the water, and her father didn't want to overwork her. He wanted her to enjoy her childhood and to not solely focus on gaining strength. On the bright side, her father introduced her to nature transformation of her chakra. They found out she had wind affinity, thus, her dad tasked her with exercises for control. An exciting and fulfilling leaf-cutting exercises. Note her sarcasm. She was excited about learning what the scrolls contained. If they were scrolls of sealing arts, then she would advance in Fuinjutsu. Ooh! That was something to look forward to. The father and daughter decided to leave Uzu no Kuni, after 3 weeks. They brought all the scrolls with them. Oddly, after storing them in 2 huge sealing scrolls, the barrier that protected the underground chamber for so long dissipated and never activated by itself again. To Naruto, it felt like her ancestors trusted her to continue protecting what's left of Uzushio's pride and glory. They entrusted her whatever history and secrets the scrolls contained. Leaving the country was a bittersweet moment for her, but she was happy. She was given a chance to see her mother's homeland. And they were heading back to Konoha. While she enjoyed the time she spent with her father, she also missed Jiji, Tachi-ni and Kashi-ni. She hadn't seen them in 2 years, and she was looking forward telling them her experiences and everything she gained. They headed to Nami no Kuni and stayed at an inn. They were about to call it a night when one of her dad's toad summons appeared inside the room. "Minato-sama, Sarutobi Hiruzen-sama asked me to find you," the messenger toad informed. "Is something the matter?" "He didn't tell, Minato-sama. He said to tell you one of his Anbu will be meeting you and that you wait for him." The messenger toad didn't give details. After delivering the massage, it vanished with a puff of smoke. Minato was surprised that the Anbu he met at a secluded part of the outskirts of Nami no Kuni was the young Uchiha Itachi. But what surprised him most, to the point of stunned silence, was the disturbing news he received from the boy. The massacre of the Uchiha clan. The young Anbu disclosed the truth about the event, and Minato couldn't help mourning not only for the innocent lives lost but also for this boy who suffered the most. To make a hard decision at such young age and kill his own kin for the sake of the village, Uchiha Itachi was probably the most loyal shinobi of Konoha. He stared at boy. Itachi looked detached, cold, void of emotions, but Minato could tell it was nothing but a facade. A part of Minato wanted to blame himself for the crisis that had occurred. Had he remained at Konoha, they could have prevented such tragedy. He could have shared inputs to Hiruzen. Hell, he could have taken the Hokage mantle back just to avoid the annihilation. He could have faced Madara right then. "Don't blame yourself for what happened, Yondaime-sama," he heard Itachi say, as if reading his mind. "My clan's actions are theirs as mine is my own. You know the curse of hatred, and whether you admit it or not, sooner or later, it will clash to the will of fire. Had I not put an end to that internal strife, we will be facing war. It is regretful that it had come to this, but it is done. I chose the will of fire and I will stand by it. We could have prevented it. Itachi shook his head. No, Yondaime-sama. We would just prolong the inevitable. This conflict had started since the Shadaime's time. Diplomacy and peace talks would not work. You don't know that, he disagreed. I know that, the 13-year-old Anbu said solemnly. I am a clan member, Yondaime-sama. I know how the Uchihas think. My father and the elders did have a tight hold of their ideologies. And we Uchihas are dangerous, for we hold the Sharingan. The coup was just a start. Do you think my father would simply comply at the Hokage's wishes just like that? He had a very dangerous mindset and nothing would have stopped him. The elders had already brainwashed him. And he could easily persuade the entire clan, even the children, to go against the Hokage. Just imagine Konoha facing hundreds of Uchihas filled with hatred. Minato heaved a deep sigh. How should he refute that? While he still believed that the massacre could have been prevented, he couldn't say in confidence that there won't be another coup d'état coming. Whether he admitted it or not, Itachi had a valid argument. What are you planning to do now? He asked. I will accept Madara's offer to join his organization, Yondaime-sama. I have to keep an eye on him. At Sandaime-sama's permission, I will be a spy to the group and relay to you or Jiraiya-sama their movements. The blonde gritted his teeth. He wanted to go with Itachi and kill Madara, but it wasn't a logical move. As Uchiha Madara was a powerful shinobi, they have to lay plans accordingly. And having Itachi as their operative to watch the man was the wise choice. For now. He stood straight and faced the young man in a serious demeanor. Then, I, Namikaze Minato, Yondaime Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato hereby order you, Uchiha Itachi, to stay alive, he commanded with an authoritative tone. And expect your name will be cleared, and I will be expecting your return to Konoha when the time comes. The young man didn't expect the older one's words and action. Itachi's eyes widened in surprise but turned into grim determination. The boy then knelt into an Anbu's posture when receiving an order. Hi, Hokage-sama, was his indomitable response. Minato heaved another sigh. You can come out now, Naruto? And here he thought he made it clear when he told her to stay inside their room. His daughter left the tree she hid herself with, healthy tears running down on her cheeks. She looked at Itachi brokenly. He could tell she heard everything. At times like this, her chakra suppression skills irked him. Tachi ni. Itachi stood and turned to the girl. His expression softened and held out his arms. In a heartbeat, Naruto ran and tackled the boy. Itachi, embracing his daughter, finally shed silent tears. Minato felt he didn't have to witness a private moment between the two, so he gave them space, looking after them from a distance. He knew the two treated each other like siblings, and Naruto would have a hard time accepting Itachi's decision to spy on enemy ground. When the two calmed down, Minato went back to get them. Stay with us for a few days, Itachi, he asked the young man. Spend time with Naru before you proceed with the mission. Itachi nodded and spoke. Yondaime-sama, Sarutobi-sama has orders for you, as well. At his nod, the boy continued. Return to Konoha only when you and Naruto are truly ready. Minato understood what Sarutobi had meant. They were to return to the village when he and Naruto were able to control the Kyuubi's power. Uchiha Madara had come back to the village. Sooner or later, he would be back again, and by that time, Minato should be strong enough to face the man. And Naruto should be strong enough to defend herself. It was early. The sun was already peeking over the mountains to the east, and the morning mist was already clearing. Flapping sounds of the birds' wings could be heard as they flew from their nests. The frogs had stopped croaking and warmth was slowly spreading through the area. Still, at where Minato was standing, it felt like the night has yet to end. He looked around to make sure they were alone. They were past the border of Hai no Kuni, and Uchiha Itachi had already left them. Seated on a rotten trunk was his daughter, quiet and still disheartened. But who could blame her? She just set off her pseudo-brother and he was going to a highly dangerous, long-term mission. With an inward sigh, He walked towards his daughter and sat beside her. "Naru, Itachi-kun will be fine," he assured her, though he himself wasn't sure of it. After all, the boy was barely on his teens, but his life had drastically changed. Why does he have to suffer? Why didn't Gigi do something? She asked in misery. "Sweetheart, you heard what Itachi-kun told me. Sandaime-sama had nothing to do with the wipeout order. He was bypassed by the council, and Itachi-kun, being a mere soldier, could only obey his superiors. You told me that Onbus are under the Hokage's direct command. How come Itachi Niazan followed orders without Gigi's decision?" This time, he let out a heavy sigh. How to answer that? His time as Hokage wasn't as long as Hiruzen's reign. And while his governance was the same as the Sandaime's, the council barely held power over him. Hiruzen, on the other hand, had a close relationship with them. Therefore, they tended to believe they had the same authority. "Politics can be a pain in the neck, Naruto," he said. "While it's true that the Hokage always make final decisions, the council holds great influence over the village. Their views and opinions, whether good or not for the few, are highly regarded." His daughter frowned. "So, they let someone fall and be blamed for something they decided?" He sighed once more. Sometimes, he wished Naruto wasn't getting smarter and smarter. This talk about politics and governance shouldn't be their topic right now. Every nation, every village has their own dirty secrets and conspiracies, sweetheart. Even powerful leaders couldn't just eliminate that. There will always be one or two that will misuse authority. Naruto's lips formed a thin line before she spoke. Itachi Niazan should have been hailed as village hero, not some wanted criminal. Those higher-ups are comfortably living inside the protection of the village while he has to run and be treated as Rujinin. Her words sometimes scared him. For an 8-year-old girl to say something like that, like she fully understood the life of a shinobi, there wasn't contempt in her voice or hatred, just plain disbelief. Or was she just hiding what she really felt? "You heard me when I told Itachi-kun his name will be cleared in time, right?" he said instead. "It will, Naru. Can you believe that, then?" She looked up at him and nodded in determination. "Yes, I can. And believe Itachi-kun will stay alive. He promised you, didn't he?" Naruto took a deep breath before she smiled. "I will." She stood up. "So, where are we heading next?" Minato could tell that her smile was forced but didn't comment on it. Instead, he gave her his usual bright smile and stood as well. "We're heading south." His daughter took out their map and looked at it. "We're going to Chan no Kuni again." "Nope." He grinned and pointed a country on the map. "When we were on our late teens, Kushina and I went there for a mission. They held festivals there at this time of the year." Naruto instantly cried in delight when she saw where he was pointing at. "Udon no Kuni." He chuckled. "That's right. We're heading to the land of noodles." "Ramen?" And she hopped as they began walking ahead. "Naru, there are other noodle dishes besides ramen," he told her. "Udon, soba, somen, oden, among others. Udon no Kuni specializes in the production of noodles, and there's a certain village there that makes exemplary delicious noodle dishes." "Who cares? I just want ramen. So far, there's no place we've been with ramen that tastes like Ichiraku's." Minato smiled at her sudden change of mood. He hadn't talked to Naruto about it, but he had sent a message to Jiraiya-sensei, and the man would be meeting them in 2 weeks. For now, he and Naruto would just wander around, spend time as just father and daughter. He watched as she continued bouncing. A part of him was glad that Itachi didn't treat his daughter like just some child. Although a boisterous child, Naruto sometimes resembled the young Uchiha when it came to wisdom. Itachi seemed to see it. That's why there was also a part of Minato that wished Itachi should have just treated her like a normal child. When the young Uchiha told them about the suspicions of Konoha's elders that his clan instigated the Kyuubi attack 8 years ago, Minato could tell Naruto was affected. She might not have said a thing, but he knew she was thinking of getting stronger to make sure there wouldn't be any more October 10th tragedy. But as responsible as she was, And as much as he wanted her to be prepared for the looming threat, Minato didn't want her to lose her childhood. But raising a child wasn't really easy, especially now that her mother wasn't around anymore. He could be a great father to her, but he knew there would be times she would need her mother. And he couldn't give her that. He couldn't see himself marrying another woman, not even to give Naruto a mother figure. So he was like this, still groping his way being a parent. A father. He was slightly startled when he felt arms wrap around his waist. He looked down to see Naruto hugging her. "Thanks, Dad," she said. "You're the best." He smiled. He wanted to be. And for her, he would be. A festive atmosphere surrounded the country when Naruto and her father reached Udon no Kuni. Even the rural areas they passed through were in festal mood. The people around wheat farms were celebrating for the good harvest of the year. Naruto had to wonder if the country had their god of noodles, specifically god of ramen. She would definitely visit the shrine if there was one, to offer ramen and pray for ramen. Each town had their own celebration, but the center of the festival was held in Hyamugi town, the capital of the country. Since it was also the summer season, the town was also holding a fireworks display at the end of the 3-day celebration. People around the country and from foreign lands gathered there to join the festivity. The locals were busy with preparation and inns and lodging houses were almost fully booked. Good thing her father used his charms. They managed to get a room. That was one of the advantages of having a handsome dad in Henge. "Let's walk around?" her dad offered when they settled their belongings inside the room. Naruto nodded in excitement. "I read a poster on the street. They're having a ramen eating contest tomorrow." Minato grinned. "Let's enter." Naruto grinned back. "Let's win." They snickered together as they walked out. As usual, her father put a protective seal to the room since the scrolls from Uzu were with them. When secured, he took her hand and held it firmly as they went out of the inn. As they wandered along the busy streets, Naruto noticed some people, local and foreign, would turn their heads on them. Her father's appearance wasn't that attention-getter, but since he chose bright red for his hair color today, he was that noticeable. And he was handsome. Another, he was with a child and she had bright blonde hair. Also noticeable. But then again, there were a lot of people around, and more so, there were with flamboyant appearance. Soon, the two of them would blend in just fine. They searched for the registration desk only to find out that the registration had already been closed. The competitors had already been selected. "Too bad we didn't make it," her father remarked consolingly. She sighed in disappointment. And here she was looking forward to it. Free ramen. He chuckled as he took her hand. "Let's still have some fun." She grinned and mocked a salute with her free hand. Dada-bye-o. They headed back to the main street to look around. Most stalls were open to public, but there were also that were still closed, most likely to be open during nighttime. But since it was nearing dusk, more and more stalls would open soon enough. There were a lot of people strolling around. Families, couples and group of friends. She couldn't help admiring the sight. She wished Kakashi-ni was here with them to enjoy the festival. She wished Itachi-ni hadn't left yet. She hadn't been on a festival with them. Back in Konoha, she was always hiding during the festivals. She took a glance at her father as they walked through the crowded streets. Back in Konoha, she never thought she would be spending time with her father because back then, she had none. Right now, she had. There was no use wishing for what she couldn't have. Her father was beside her right now, holding her hand. Alive. They would enjoy the festivity today and the next 2 days. That was the most important thing, and the happiest. She heard her father mumble. He stopped walking as he looked at the shop on their left. "Let's get inside." He pulled her towards the shop. Erasmus. A pretty lady greeted them. "What can I help you with?" "I'd like to purchase yukatas for my daughter and myself," Minato answered with a smile. Naruto's eyes widened a bit. She never wore a yukata. Her eyes suddenly were ogling at the different colored and patterned fabrics on the display rack. "I want the orange one," she told them. Her father laughed but shook his head at her. Try the others first. Two other ladies came to assist them and took Naruto to the dressing area. One of them left to get different yukata her size to try on. After a few tries, she ended up wearing not the orange one but a lavender-colored fabric with camellia flowers design. It was matched with darker shade of lavender obi. They also handed her a pair of black slippers to wear. "You look so cute," the lady said, almost squealing. She beamed at her. "Thank you, Wani-san. Now, let's get your hair done." She removed the scungies tying up Naruto's usual pigtails. "Huh?" The lady clucked her tongue playfully. "Hairstyles are important in wearing a yukata, little girl. They complete the look and putting the hair up is necessary. Your mother should have told you that." She grimaced a bit. "Ah, my mother is dead. It's only my dad and I." "Oh," the lady muttered, clearly taken aback. "I'm sorry." Naruto smiled at her. "It's okay. What's your name, Wani-san?" "I'm Chika and the other girl is my sister, Chio. The one assisting your dad is Keiko Nichan. What's yours?" "I'm Naru." Chika led her to a chair and went behind her. "You have a very beautiful hair, Naru," she said as she started combing Naruto's hair. Her hair was halfway done when Chio arrived with a different set of decorative clips to match her hairstyle. When Naruto looked at herself in the mirror, she could see a fish braid pattern adorning the bun. When the ladies were done, Chio placed the camellia decorated clip on the side of the bun. It was when Chika really squealed. "You really look so cute, Naru-chan." "Thanks, Nei-chan." She looked around. "Where are my clothes?" "We put them on a bag. Your dad already had them." Chio handed her a pouch. "This comes with the outfit." "Thanks, Chio-nizan." The lady smiled and winked at her. "Your father will definitely like the way you look." She held out her hand. "Come. He's been looking forward to see you." Naruto took Chio's hand and they walked out of the dressing room. There were other costumers around and the shop had become a little busier. She looked for her father and found him seated on the waiting area. He was wearing a dark gray yukata with a black obi. Sensing her presence, he turned to her. His eyes widened when he saw her and he slowly stood up. Why did he look so surprised? The ladies said she looked cute. Naru. He breathed quietly when she stopped in front of him. Her eyes bulged in shock when tears formed in his eyes. She squealed in surprise when he suddenly pulled her onto his lap and hugged her. My little darling looked so adorable, but looked so grown up. "Ah, careful with the hair, mister," Chio-nizan chastised with a smile. Minato ignored the lady. "Ugh. Boys will definitely follow you around. But they won't get near you." "Daddy!" Naruto cried in embarrassment. The people around were now looking at them. He let go of her when she squirmed her way out of his lap, her cheeks heating. "I'm only almost 9. Trust me, boys start at that age." She crossed her arms and eyed him suspiciously. "Were you at that age when you began noticing Mom?" She grinned when it was his turn to blush. "You were. I bet Mom completely ignored you," she teased. He bashfully scratched the back of his head and sighed in mock gloom. "Yes, she did that. When we were kids, I'm just a wimp to her, unreliable and even girly. Not worthy of her attention." Naruto burst out laughing at that. She couldn't imagine her dad, the Yondaime Hokage, to be a wimp even in his childhood. "Why so glum, Dad? You won her heart, anyway. The red string of fate, remember?" He beamed at her. "True, true. And now I have you." His eyes squinted. "No boys until you're 40. She snorted. "That again? The only boys in my life are you, Kashi ni, Tachi ni, Gigi and Reiji. I know and no need to add more. Got it? And if I want to get married when I'm 20? She tested. His eyes widened in disbelief and he paled. Drastically. "Am married?" He choked. He cupped her face in panic and she had no idea if it was real or not. No, no. You're not getting married. Ever. I won't allow it. She let out another burst of laugh. You're funny, Dad. When she looked around, she noticed people openly listening to their conversation as they watched the two. Even Chica and Chio were silently chuckling at their exchange. Come, let's enjoy the festival, he said as he took her hand. He turned to the ladies who assisted them and smiled. Thank you very much for your help. Thanks, Chica Nizan. Chio Nizan, she parroted. The ladies smiled at them. It's fun watching you two, Chica commented. You seem like a happy father and daughter. That, we are, Minato replied. Enjoy the rest of the day, Chio said. The two of them strolled around the streets and went to different food stalls. They tried the takoyaki first and then the yakisoba. And since both of them had a pit of a stomach, they tried the other food stalls. They tried ramen, the oden and somen he was talking about, among others. They ate until they couldn't walk anymore. Her father was attentive to her, wiping any sauce on the corner of her lips, holding the food or the cup of drinks for her and making sure the food wouldn't spill on her clothes. He didn't know, but she always relished it, especially when he was like that. You want to try the games? She heard him ask as they passed through the game stalls. Ooh, she exclaimed and pulled her father towards the first stall. It was a ring-tossing booth. Welcome. The man inside the stall greeted with a smile. What a lovely girl you have there, sir. Is she your daughter? Minato beamed at the man. Yes, she is. A set, please. The man handed them 5 pieces of saucer-sized yellow rings after her father paid. Toss the 5 rings over each peg and you'll get one of those, he explained and pointed at the large different animal plushies filed on the upper row of the rack. 4, you'd get one of the smaller ones. 3, a keychain. 2 below, no prize. Minato gave her the rings. Naruto eyed the wolf plushie before she started tossing the rings. 5 tosses later, she was clapping in anticipation as the stall owner took the wolf plushie from the rack. Do you want to get another? Her dad asked and she nodded enthusiastically. Can I get 3 more plushies? She asked. Her father winked at her, knowing she could toss the rings with precision and ease. 3 more set of rings later they were bidding the grimacing stall owner goodbye. She was holding the wolf and the fox plushies while her father was holding the frog and the weasel ones. Too bad there wasn't a large weasel, so she ended up not tossing one ring properly to get the smaller plushie. So, the weasel is Tachi-kun, her dad inquired as they walked to the next game stall. And the wolf is Kashi-kun. Yup. If there's a monkey one, I would have gotten it, too. Gigi is monkey. We're both the fox and the frog is Reiji. Then, let's find one, he suggested. She glanced at him with uncertainty. Is it okay to spend this much money? Time will come you'll have to learn spending your money wisely. Not today, though. Besides, let your father spoil you every once in a while. She smiled at her father. But you always spoil me. He smiled back at her. That's a father's privilege, darling. Always. She stopped walking as she felt her heart constrict in happiness. To have a father was one thing. To have an attentive and loving father was another. And every time she spent with him was precious to her. Too precious. When he noticed she stopped walking, he did, as well, and looked down at her. Something wrong, darling? She shook her head. I love you, Daddy. His eyes softened as he stared at her and once again, tears filled them. It wasn't the first time she said I love you to him, but it seemed it was always for him. Tears would fill his eyes every time she would say the words. It was as if her I love you, Dad was always new to him. And that, like how she relished their time together, he relished her words. I love you more, sweet darling. It was their 3rd night at the town, the last day of the festival and the night of the fireworks display. Naruto and Minato were sitting on a high branch of a tree, while below them were people gathered on the hillside to watch the event. Naruto dangled her feet playfully as she waited for the display to start. Dad, are you going back to be Hokage when we get back to the village? She asked randomly. He took a deep breath. I don't know, Naru. Right now, I'm enjoying this. He waved his hand, gesturing the two of them and the surroundings. Back in my days, I was busy with my duties as a ninja. There was war. I lost 2 of my students and I became the Hokage. I hadn't really got the luxury to have free time. He looked at the night sky. When Kushina and I settled down, she was very supportive of me even when I spent most of my time leading the village. I hadn't got the chance to spend time with her just as her husband. My job and my duty to the village didn't really leave time for us to be alone. Are you enjoying spending time with me? He smiled brightly at her. Immensely, darling. Immensely. She smiled back as brightly. Me, too, Dad. I cherish our time together. Her father stared at her for a moment before he asked a question. Naru, how do you feel about going back to Konoha? I don't want to go back yet, was her clear answer. Why? He prodded. Do you hate the village? The villagers? She shook her head. I don't hate 'em. I just don't feel like going back now, she answered truthfully. It's fun listening to Jiraiya Oji-san's stories about his travels and I'm enjoying our own. And? She paused for a moment. I don't like the village right now. They hated me for so long and now they hated Tachi-ni, too. Naru, it's not their entire fault, they know nothing about the truth, he tried to reason out. About you and about Itachi-kun. And that's what gets me mad. They easily judge people. It's easy for them to place their hatred to anyone that symbolizes their fears. They put names on us even without knowing us, without understanding us. Minato chuckled dryly. You really amaze and scare me at the same time, darling. She giggled. Why did you ask about going back? She queried. Oh, nothing. I just want to know what you thought of it. Do you hate the villagers? She tested. Is that why we left? No. He answered hesitantly. No, I don't hate them. It's true I felt resentment towards them when I found out what happened to you. I'm not justifying my feelings towards them, but I'm only human, darling. I feel anger, too. He took a deep breath. But we're away for 2 years now. You can say that the anger had waned? Are we going back to Konoha? She was excited about going back until she met Tachi-ni back at Nami. Not yet, Naru. He brushed the hair on her forehead. We still need to control our bijuu's power. I don't think it's wise to do that in Konoha. The sound of explosion, followed by vivid display of bright light, made them turn their heads towards the sky. Colorful and patterned flare-ups radiated through the night sky, lighting the area with their magnificent glow. So pretty, she mumbled in amazement as she watched in awe. When she was young, she could only hear the sound of the explosion. She had no idea it was this beautiful. Is this your first time seeing a fireworks display? Her father asked. There's fireworks festival at Konoha every year. I always hide during the event, she told him without leaving her gaze at the continuous display of vibrant explosions. When I was still at the orphanage, I wasn't allowed to go outside. I can't see the display from my window and the matron would punish me if I tried to sneak out. There's one time, Kashi-ni was supposed to take me to one but he had a sudden mission. Oh, darling, Minato sighed and pulled her in a tight embrace. From now on, we'll watch as many fireworks display as possible. The spectacle lasted for more than 20 minutes and Naruto could only sigh in rapture when the display ended. The gathered spectators below them started to leave the venue but the two of them remained seated on the branch. She never thought something as pyrotechnics could be so heartwarming. No wonder even people from foreign lands would travel just to see them. She wrapped her arm around her father's waist and looked at his face. Thanks for bringing me here, Dad. Anytime, Naruto. Dad, did you know one of Tachi-ni's dream is to become Hokage? She recalled. Minato gave her a gentle smile. No, but I think every Konoha shinobi dreams to be one. She balanced herself and stood, her father followed suit. I will become Hokage, she declared. Her father's eyes widened and then, he laughed in amusement. Okay, now I'm more amazed. Pray tell, why did you suddenly want to become Hokage? It's not sudden, she corrected and looked at the now dark sky. I've been thinking a lot since we met Tachi-ni. He was sacrificed for the good of many. He embraced his path with open arms, protected the village even if he became the villain to the eyes of the villagers. But who was to protect him? Who will protect the ninjas like him? Naru. Was all her father said, surprise written all over his face. I will become Hokage, she declared. I will become like you, Dad. And I will see to it that there will be no more Uchiha Itachi in the future. If it comes to that and someone will be sacrificed, I will make sure that he or she will be protected. Oh, my darling child, Minato lamented in both regret and love, before he lifted her small body and wrapped his arms around her. Naruto gleefully dashed through the streets as she tried to evade her father. It was still early morning. They just finished their morning routine when they decided to play hide and seek. He was the one to seek. The game had no rules and they both could use shinobi arts. When she found the right timing, she rushed towards an alley. She performed the henge no jutsu to transform into someone older. She walked back on the streets but she stopped when she saw a glass window from an establishment. She looked at her reflection. She was now, more or less, 5 feet and 3 inches tall. Her brown hair was shoulder length. She didn't have her whisker marks on her face and her eyes were green. She was wearing a blue shirt and black pants. She looked like she was on her mid-teens. When satisfied, she suppressed her chakra as much as she could and tried to blend into the early crowd. The streets weren't busy but there were people already starting their day. She walked languidly and tried not to smirk when she saw her father not far ahead. He was walking opposite her direction and was looking around. She stopped at an open stall selling hair decorative ornaments and pretended she was checking the items. She then sensed her father walked past through the stall. She smiled as she reached for a hair clip. He didn't notice her. Ah, young lady. That design would definitely suit you. The vendor enthusiastically told her. That's 50 ryo a pair, my sweet. Oh, she mumbled and put the clip back to its box. She wasn't really buying and she didn't have money on her. No, I was just looking. 40 ryo. She shook her head. I'm not really buying. 2 pairs for 40 ryo, a voice interrupted. Naruto turned to the voice and her eyes widened when she recognized her godfather standing a few feet away from them. He was grinning from ear to ear and his eyes were full of mirth. Did he know it was her? Jiraiya walked towards them. He winked at her. Oju-chan, the one with clover leaves design is nice. And that one with spiral design. Yeah, he knew it was her. How did you know? She asked him. He grinned at her. I was watching you all this time. And then, I saw your idiot father walked past you. He turned to the vendor. 2 pairs for 40 ryo, he repeated before he took his wallet and fished out some paper cash. The man scowled and refused but Jiraiya was good at bargaining. Naruto watched with a smile as the vendor gave in and sold them 2 pairs of hair clips for 40 ryo. She learned her godfather was gristly when it came to money. I thought you'll be arriving next week, she commented when Jiraiya handed her the boxed clips. She snaked her free arm around his left arm and they walked away from the stall. Well, I missed my pseudo-son and my goddaughter, he offered, looking down at her. You should have come earlier, then. You missed the fireworks display. It's really beautiful. He chuckled. I would have arrived at a later time but your father's message said it was urgent. Oh, that, she sighed, knowing what the message was about. Something happened back at the village. Her godfather's happy-go-lucky demeanor turned serious. I heard. The incident spread like wildfire around the shinobi nation. It's not his fault. She defended immediately, knowing Jiraiya would know who she was talking about. He's with us just last week and he told us the truth. Jiraiya's eyes widened at her outburst but squinted considerably at her statement. Come on. Let's find your idiot father first. I'm sure I'll be shocked at what you both have to tell me. They walked towards where Minato headed, but they found him leaning against a post nearby, with his arms crossed. He was looking at them with a gentle smile on his face. That's a lovely young lady you have there, Sensei, he commented when they reached him. He turned his gaze to her and smiled in mirth. May I know your name, Oju-chan? He asked knowingly. She scowled. Did you hear us talking? She asked her dad. He shook his head. I'll always know, darling, he simply said, winking at her. So, you knew it was me when you walked past the stall? You're my daughter. I have to find ways how to make sure I know. She pouted and let go of her godfather's arms. Then, what's the point of playing hide and seek? Minato gave her his dorky smile. For fun, of course. I should have used Inpei seal, she muttered sulkily. Inpei seal, huh? Her father repeated, nodding to himself. Concealment of the chakra flow. That would do even when you're in henge. But then, he grinned at her. I'd still find you, though. And with that, she skulked like an 8-year-old that she was, despite her older appearance. Folks, that concludes the current update. Kindly show your support by liking, sharing, and commenting. Additionally, remember to subscribe to my channel.